Chapter 786. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel is more complete and updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. There are all kinds of novels that can't be found on the internet. The Imperial Preceptor's Hall was brightly lit. Imperial concubine Han had fallen, so there was no need to keep the spy. Gu Jiao asked him to break something casually, and then asked someone to send him back to the palace. Regardless of whether Zhang Dequan doubted him or not, he would not use such a careless eunuch who was sent back to the palace. The old chancellor was asking Xiao Heng about the situation of the top 10 aristocratic families. Empress Dowager Zhuang was holding the jar and eating today's candied fruit very carefully. Gu Jiao got up and said, "I'm going to cook." There was a chef in the Imperial Preceptor's Hall, but she wanted to cook a hometown dish for her family. Empress Dowager Zhuang said angrily, "Come back. Who wants to eat the food you cook?" It was so hot to go into the kitchen on a hot day. Gu Jiao said, "But didn't you say you wanted to eat Zhao's state dishes at noon?" "I just said it casually." Empress Dowager Zhuang glared at the old chancellor. "You go." The old chancellor didn't want to go. "There is a chef in the Imperial Preceptor's Hall." "Why are you? I'll go." Xiao Heng said. He also knew how to cook Zhao state dishes. The old chancellor was shocked. He waved his hand and stood up. "You can't go. I'll cook." Xiao Heng. In order not to eat his disciples' dark cuisine, the old chancellor went to the kitchen to cook under the hot weather. Little commandery princess went back to the palace. Little Jingkong was led by Gu Qingfeng to buy sugar-coated haws on the street. Only Gu Jiao, Empress Dowager Zhuang, and Xiao Heng were left in the room. Gu Jiao hummed and said, "Great aunt, after what happened in Han Shi's palace today, the fact that the third princess has a bunch of imperial mothers should have been exposed. What will they do?" In fact, if there were only her and Xiao Heng, they would also think about it. But with grand aunt and son-in-law here, they could slack off. Empress Dowager Zhuang said calmly, "They will come." Speak of the devil. A disciple from the Imperial Preceptor Hall came to the Qilin Hall and cupped his hands toward Xiao Heng. "Prince Changsun, there are two people outside. They said that they were sent by His Majesty to visit the third princess." Xiao Heng and Gu Jiao exchanged a look. Empress Dowager Zhuang nodded slightly. Xiao Heng said to the disciples of the State Preceptor Hall, "Let them in." Yes. Less than half a quarter of an hour later, a eunuch and a person dressed like a nanny arrived at the Qilin Hall. In the corridor, the nanny lowered her head, and her figure was blocked by the eunuch. The eunuch looked at the little palace made guarding Shang Wanyan's door and said with a pleasant expression, "We are here to deliver clothes to third princess. Is His Highness Jiangsun not here?" The little maid said, "His Highness just went to the toilet." This was perfect. He did not have to find an excuse to send His Highness Jiangsun away. The eunuch smiled. "Then I'll pay my respects to His Highness Jiangsun later. Can I go in and see the third princess?" "Okay." The little palace maid, Huan stepped aside. The eunuch and the nanny entered the room. After a while, the eunuch's voice came from the room. "It seems that it doesn't fit. You measure the third princess's size and make a few new ones. I'll wait for you outside." After that, he went out of the room and smiled at Huan. "I'm a little thirsty. Can you pour me a glass of water?" "Gong Gong, please wait a moment." Huan was successfully sent away. Inside the room, the nanny went behind the screen and coldly looked at the closed curtain. "Don't pretend, third princess. Come out quickly." There was a sound of movement inside the mosquito net. The curtain was lifted, and Shang Wanyan's smiling face came out. "Wang Xianfei, I haven't seen you for 3 days. How have you been?" Wang Xianfei coldly snorted. "You're not calling me mother so soon?" Shang Wanyan asked back. "Do you deserve it?" Wang Xianfei was so angry that she leaned back. She was really a ruthless person who kicked her aside after using her. Wang Xianfei arrogantly said, "Shang Wanyan, don't be complacent too early. I already know all the things you've done, and the rest of people also know your face. Tomorrow morning, Everyone will come with His Majesty to check your injuries. At that time, I'm afraid you won't even be able to cry." Shang Guanyin raised an eyebrow. "Oh, is that so? Then Wang Xianfei came all the way here to remind me. You don't want to see me cry?" Wang Xianfei's eyes were cold. "Shang Guanyin, don't talk nonsense. You have so many things in our hands. Once it's exposed, your end will only be more miserable than before. Now only I can save you." Shang Guanyin asked, "Why do you want to save me?" Wang Xianfei said, "I want to make a deal with you. As long as you continue to fulfill your original promise, I have a way to solve tomorrow's crisis for you." Shang Guanyin didn't ask what she could do, but smiled faintly. "I just cheated you, and you still dare to come to me to make a deal? Are you soaked in the rain too much that your brain is flooded with water?" Shang Guanyin's words could really anger a person to death. Wang Xianfei took a deep breath and spent a lot of effort to resist the urge to stab her to death. Wang Xianfei said with a strong aura, "I dare to come here. I'm not afraid of you betraying me, because you have no other choice." Shang Guanyin narrowed her eyes. "It sounds very reasonable. What does Wang Xianfei want me to do?" Seeing that Shang Guanyin was still reasonable, Wang Xianfei's expression became slightly better. "It's very simple. In the middle of the night, you pretend to be in a situation. When the news reaches the palace, I will come with His Majesty to visit you. At that time, you just need to open your eyes, take my hand, and call me Imperial Mother." Shang Guanyin looked at her strangely. "You want me to pretend to be crazy?" Wang Xianfei coldly snorted. "You even pretended to have amnesia. What's the point of pretending to be crazy?" Shang Guanyin raised an eyebrow. "What if His Majesty doesn't believe me?" Wang Xianfei's face sank. "That's your business. If you can't make His Majesty believe you, then tomorrow morning you will be exposed. This old witch wants me to recognize her as my imperial mother. She can even think of such a thing." Shang Guanyin put on her shoes, got out of bed, and slowly came to the window. She looked at Wang Xianfei meaningfully. "Wang Xianfei's condition is very tempting. I personally want to agree, but I don't know if these people will agree." After saying that, she pushed open the window. Wang Xianfei took a closer look and saw Consort Dong, Consort Yang, Consort Chen, and Feng Zhaoyi hiding outside the window. The four people didn't expect Shang Guanyin to open the window without saying anything. They were caught off guard and were collectively dumbfounded. Wang Xianfei was also stunned. 10 eyes met at the epic-level large-scale social death scene. "You, why are you here?" It took Wang Xianfei a long time to find her voice. Shang Guanyin was happy to watch a good show. She crossed her arms and calmly looked at Consort Dong and the others. Consort Dong cleared her throat and asked, "We also want to ask you, didn't you say that you will go to His Majesty tomorrow morning to report this shameless person? You are just stalling for time so that you can come and make a deal with her." Shang Guanyin glanced at her. "Hey, pay attention to your words. Who is shameless? Are you guys shameless? You guys can't wait to sell out your teammates. This is your so-called alliance? It's ridiculous. Aren't you?" Wang Xianfei coldly asked. "We." Consort Dong's face turned red and looked at Feng Zhaoyi. She came first. Feng Zhaoyi's body shook. "I am the third. When I came, Consort Shu and Consort Da were already hiding outside the window. Consort Da came first. Consort Shu decisively sold out Consort Yang. Halfway through her deal with Shang Guanyin, she heard someone coming from the palace. She climbed out of the window to hide, only to see Consort Yang standing in front of her. God knows what kind of mood she was in at that time. Then Feng Zhaoyi came. When Feng Zhaoyi climbed out of the window, Shi experienced a wave of shock. Then came Consort Dong and Consort Wang. Consort Wang's whole body was not good. She was so angry that she could see stars. It was obviously her plan, but how did she become the slowest one? There has never been a stupid woman in the harem. Even if there were, they would have died long ago. Who could hold on until now? They were tricked by Shang Guanyin because they didn't expect that Shang Guanyin would win by a surprise move. In addition, Shang Guanyin knew them very well. But because Shang Guanyin had been in the imperial tomb for more than 10 years, her temperament had changed greatly. She was no longer the crowned princess they were familiar with. Know yourself and know your enemy, and you will win 100 battles. This sentence was not unreasonable. We don't want infighting. Consort Wang calmed down and stabilized the overall situation. Everyone wants to be the empress, but it seems that no one can do it. It's better to take a step back and think about how to get revenge. Of course, if you are willing to be played by Shang Guanyin, just pretend that I didn't say anything. Consort Dong sarcastically said, "You don't want to send us away and play some tricks behind our backs, do you? You said it like you didn't play any tricks? Each one of you is more impatient than me, and you still have the face to mock me?" Consort Wang suppressed her anger. She didn't want to fight with Consort Dong at this juncture. She seriously said, "Let's go to the palace together and invite His Majesty. Don't say that we have seen her. Her testimony alone is not enough to convince us. Think of a way to let His Majesty see her injury." The four people were silent. At this point, they certainly understood that the deal with Shang Guanyin would not work. They were the 5 dignified imperial concubines, but they were played by a junior. They really couldn't swallow this. "Good, I agree." Consort Qin Shufei was the first to express her opinion. "I also agree." Immediately after, Feng Zhaoi and Consort Yang, they also expressed their opinion. Consort Dong impatiently frowned. "You all agreed, what else can I do? All right, let's go back to the palace." Shang Guanyin slowly said, "Are you sure you want to leave like this?" Consort Wang warned Shang Guanyin, "Don't even think about doing anything to us here. Our people are not to be trifled with. If we really go to His Majesty, we can just say that we were worried about you and secretly went out of the palace to visit you. You won't get any benefits." Shang Guanyin took out a stack of paper from her wide sleeve and patted it on her palm, saying, "It seems that you don't care about this." The several people subconsciously turned their heads and looked at the paper in her hand. Shang Guanyin was afraid that they couldn't see it clearly, so she specially showed them one. The several people's pupils shrank. Consort Dong was stunned. This is the letter of commitment I wrote to the several imperial concubines. It's written in black and white. If you help me overthrow Imperial Concubine Han, I will help you ascend to the position of the Empress. Consort Feng hurriedly took out the letter that she carried with her. "Don't look at it. The one in your hand is fake. The one in my hand is the real one. If you don't believe me, you can compare the fingerprint on it." Consort Feng looked at the guide she pressed on it. She pressed it with her right thumb. Her right thumb had a doe pattern, commonly known as a snail. But on this piece of paper, the fingerprint that should belong to her was a dustpan. It was indeed different. The story of the matter was like this. Xiaoheng first secretly got the handwriting of the several imperial concubines from the State Preceptor Hall's library and let Shang Guanyin write 5 letters of commitment in advance. Then, he let the old chancellor imitate the handwriting of the several imperial concubines to sign and put their fingerprints on it. Most people wouldn't compare their fingerprints after the event. After all, they had signed in front of them. Who would have thought that Shang Guanyin's hand would be so fast that she would secretly replace it under their noses? In fact, if it was just a few little people, little Joe could do it. Why would he let Shang Guanyin find these imperial concubines at night? Empress Dowager Zhuang was not a woman who only limited her sight to the harem. She was the regent Empress Dowager who commanded the court. From the beginning, she wasn't just scheming against Imperial Concubine Han. Imperial Concubine Han was just a convenience. What she really wanted was these big fishes from the aristocratic families. Imperial Concubine Wang sneered. Shang Guanyin, even if you took this evidence, so what? Prove that we are in cahoots with you? Aren't you also involved? Shang Guanyin smiled faintly. But I'm not afraid of death. Are you not afraid? Imperial Concubine Dong was angry. You. Shang Guanyin's smile faded and her eyes were a little bit cold. She walked towards them step by step like a vengeful ghost. The Xinyuan family is gone, my imperial mother is dead, and my son is seriously ill and won't live past the end of the year. What else do I have to lose? You are different. You have a huge maternal family behind you. You have healthy and long-lived children. I only ask you one thing. Do you dare to die with me? The barefooted are not afraid of wearing shoes. Right now, I am the barefooted one. Digression. The monthly votes are close to breaking 10,000. If it breaks 10,000, we will add more chapters. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more wonderful content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel will be updated more quickly. Millions of novels can be read for free. Novels with connotations that can't be found on the internet can be found here. https://www.zhpqg.com/89642_8964226/1063253882. HTML Genius will remember this site's address in a second. www.zhpqg.com Bikuga mobile version reading website. zhpqg.com. Chapter 787. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels that can't be found on the internet are available here. Shangguan Yen was right. She has nothing to lose, but they can't gamble with their children and the entire family behind them. Several people's faces were livid with anger. Wang Xinfei coldly said, "Isn't your son still alive? Aren't you afraid of implicating him in your death?" Shangguan Yen arrogantly smiled. "When I rebelled against the Xinyuan family and became a commoner, I didn't implicate my son. Do you think that my imperial father will vent his anger on my son for framing you?" This was true. The emperor's tolerance and preference for Shangguan Qing was obvious to all. Wang Xinfei clenched her fists, her nails deeply piercing into her palms. "What do you want to do?" Shangguan Yen said with a smile, "I don't want to do anything. I just want to see your frightened look. I'm happy. When I'm happy enough, I'll send this evidence to my imperial father. At that time, we'll go to the underworld to see my imperial mother." Crazy. Chen Shufei stomped her feet. Next door, in Gu Jiao's room, Gu Jiao and Gu Chengfeng were clinging to the wall like octopuses. Their 2 ears grew on the wall. "Well, it seems they're gone," Gu Jiao said. Xiao Heng looked through the crack of the door and saw the figures passing by. "And I also know." Gu Chengfeng left the wall, straightened up, and asked in confusion, "But I don't understand. Why don't we directly ask them? For example, let them take out the evidence of framing the Xinyuan family?" In the past, the Xinyuan family had so many crimes. How many of them were fabricated by these families? If they get the evidence, they can rehabilitate the Xinyuan family. Gu Jiao said, "We can't take the initiative to say it will expose our bottom price." Never reveal your bottom price to anyone. The greatest requirement is to have no desires, and the greatest requirement is to have no demands. Let your opponent take the initiative to send all the chips in their hands to you. These were the words of her godfather. Gu Jiao felt that her great-aunt's arrangement was right. If Shangguan Yen reveals that she wants to rehabilitate the Xinyuan family, Wang Xianfei and the others will know that she doesn't want to die. She has a request and can bargain. As a result, the 5 of them are likely to use the evidence to threaten Shangguan Yen. Now, let them beg Shangguan Yen and rack their brains to find the motivation for Shangguan Yen to live. The evidence to rehabilitate the Xinyuan family would certainly be sent to Shangguan Yen, and it was likely to be far more than just evidence. Concubine Wang Xian and the other messed around for the whole night. When the night fell, the entire Qilin Hall fell into a peaceful slumber. Little Jing Kong was sleeping at Xiao Heng's place tonight. The reason was that his great-aunt had been kicked by his little foot several times, so she didn't want to sleep with this little monk anymore. Gu Jiao went to the courtyard and removed the last piece of gauze for the Black Wind King. Its injuries were completely healed. Gu Jiao stroked its head. In 3 days, she would take the Black Wind King to take over the Black Wind Camp. The road they were going to take was finally the right one, but there was still a long way to go. They couldn't relax for a moment. They couldn't be complacent because of a temporary victory. They must always be vigilant and ready to fight at any time. Give it to me. Xiao Hung came over and said. Gu Jiao was stunned. Huh? Why haven't you slept yet? Xiao Hung took the gauze from her hand and raised his other hand to tidy up her hair. You haven't slept either, right? Gu Jiao said, Oh, I came to see the Black Wind King. Xiao Hung said, I came to see you. His eyes were heavy, gentle, and affectionate. His whole heart and eyes were filled with the person in front of him. Gu Jiao blinked. This guy was getting more and more outrageous as he grew up. As soon as there was no one around, he would flirt with her. He was about to become a walking hormone. If this continued, she wouldn't be able to handle it. From a physiological point of view, her body was gradually maturing. It was indeed easy for her to be attracted to the hormones of the opposite sex. It's not my problem, it's the hormones' problem. Before Xiao Hung could say anything, he saw the little girl shake her head. He said in amusement, Why are you shaking your head? Are you not letting me see you? Let me see you, Gu Jiao said. Xiao Hung smiled gently. Gu Jiao suddenly smacked her head into his chest, her forehead resting on his firm chest. He stretched out his strong and slender arm and gently stroked her shoulder. Are you tired? Gu Jiao shook her head against his chest. I'm not tired. I'm tired for grandaunt and granduncle. They're already so old, but they still have to worry so much. Grandaunt doesn't like scheming against each other. She likes to play leaf cards in Jade Water Alley. Xiao Hung smiled. Grandaunt likes to play cards, but she likes you even more. You being safe and sound is Grandaunt's greatest joy for the rest of her life. Gu Jiao didn't move. She just leaned against his chest like a lazy calf. She rarely relaxed like this. Only in front of him did she release a little bit of her fatigue. She was indeed exhausted during this period of time. It seemed that ever since she entered the Yen Kingdom, she hadn't stopped. The boxing competition, Guyan surgery, the fight with the Han family and Nangong family, the fight for the Black Wind Cavalry. She was so busy that she couldn't stop. She was worried that others would be tired. She just didn't remember how tired she was. Xiao Hung looked at the little head in his arms and said, At most 3 months. I'll let the Yen Kingdom finish. Gu Jiao, she had a tone of confidence. Xiao Hung hugged her and asked softly, When you're done, what do you want to do? Gu Jiao thought seriously and said, Eat you. Xiao Hung. The two of them stayed in the courtyard for a while until they were almost carried away by the mosquitoes. Xiao Hung held her hand and returned to the house. Xiao Hung stood at the door and said to her, Let's go in. Gu Jiao didn't hear him. She was in a daze. Xiao Hung pointed at her forehead. What are you thinking about? Gu Jiao came back to her senses. Nothing. I just suddenly remembered what Nan Gongli said to me before he died. I do deserve to die. I betrayed you and the Xianyuan family. My death is not regrettable. I'm not surprised that you came to me for revenge. There's nothing to feel wronged, but you really think that the Nangong family did all those things? You're wrong. Ha ha ha. You're very wrong. The Nangong family can't even be considered as an accomplice. They're just a hunting dog that wants a piece of fat meat. The person who really harmed the Xianyuan family is Gu Jiao recalled. Jin something, it seems to be Yang, but it also seems to be Liang. He couldn't speak clearly at that time. It's Jingyang, right? Xiao Hung said. The Yen monarch's name is Shangguan Jingyang. Gu Jiao nodded. Oh, then it should be him. Xiao Hung held her shoulder and said seriously, the Xianyuan family will be rehabilitated, whether the Yen monarch is willing or not. In the middle of the night, Gu Jiao went to the secret room again. She wasn't surprised to see the state preceptor inside. This person came often recently. However, he didn't seem to have done anything bad to her. I'll guard him tonight. The state preceptor spoke just as Gu Jiao put the small medicine box into the groove. I'll guard him myself. Gu Jiao said. Are you sure? The state preceptor asked. Gu Jiao felt that there was a hidden meaning in his words. What do you want to say? The state preceptor said, You tricked so many people at once. Wang Xian and the others don't know about you, but the Han family more or less knows a thing or two. How did this guy even know about them tricking the imperial concubines? The state preceptor said indifferently, In the future, don't let people in through the front door. Imperial concubines came in disguise one after another. Did they really think the state preceptor hall was blind? Gu Jiao asked, Who let them in? If she didn't admit it, then they didn't. However, what did this guy mean by the first sentence? The Han family's understanding of her. The Han family didn't know that she was Gu Jiao, but they knew that she wasn't the real Xiao Lulang. They also knew that she was studying at Tianqiong Academy. Following this clue, they could easily find her residence. Not good. Marshal Aunt Nan and the others were in danger. Imperial concubine Han fell off the horse. The other party couldn't touch them in the state preceptor hall, so they attacked everyone related to them. The moon was dark and the wind was strong. Willow Lane was completely silent. Marshal Aunt Nan had just finished boiling the last antidote for Gu Chongqing. She rubbed her sore neck, put the antidote in a porcelain bottle, and planned to go back to her room to rest. She first went to Gu Xiaoshan and Gu Yan's room. The two children were sleeping very soundly. She then closed the door to old Master Meng's room. The old man's snoring was a little loud. Finally, she dragged her heavy steps and fell on her bed. The summer was hot, and the cicadas on the tree branches were incessant. The cicadas chirping covered the sound of clothes rustling in the night. A few black shadows quietly sneaked into the courtyard. They came to the door of the central room, took out their daggers, and began to pry open the door. Gu Yan suddenly woke up. He held his breath and listened attentively. The movement at the door was very light, but he still heard it. He pushed Gu Xiaoshan. Gu Xiaoshan turned over in a daze and muttered, What? Gu Yan covered his mouth. Shoo. Gu Xiaoshan was stunned. After 3 seconds of dizziness, he woke up and looked at Gu Yan in astonishment. Gu Yan lifted the curtain and pointed outside the door. Someone was coming. Digression. Thanks for everyone's monthly votes. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel is more complete and updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. There are novels with connotations that can't be found on the internet here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_8964286/1063199976. HTML Genius remembered this site's address in a second. www.zhbqg.com Biku Go mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 788. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are all available here. Gu Xiaoshan sat up. His movements were fast but not heavy, almost silent. He gave Gu Yan a look. I'll go take a look. You wait here for me. In fact, in terms of age, Gu Xiaoshan was 1 year younger than Gu Yan, but Gu Yan had always been the sickly one. Gu Xiaoshan was used to protecting him. Gu Yan shook his head, indicating that he didn't need to look. He should go wake up Master's wife and the others. Okay, Gu Xiaoshan responded in his mind. Without even wearing shoes, he went barefoot to Master's wife and Master Lu's room. When he passed through the central room, he clearly felt the other party trying to pry open the door. However, Master Lu was the best craftsman in the Zhao country. The door bolt he had modified was not easy to pry open. Of course, he didn't rule out the possibility that they would use force after getting tired of prying. For example, they could kick it open. Gu Xiaoshan had to hurry. He shook Master's wife awake. Being shaken awake in the middle of the night, Master's wife was startled. She was about to speak when she saw Gu Xiaoshan cover her mouth. He had learned this action from Gu Yan. He used it obediently. Master's wife was an experienced person. When Gu Xiaoshan woke her up in the middle of the night and covered her mouth to prevent her from speaking, she only blinked and realized that something was wrong. She kicked Master Lu, who was beside her, awake. "What's wrong? What's wrong?" Master Lu asked with a confused expression. Master's wife glared at him and whispered, "Be quiet. Someone's coming." Master Lu instantly became alert. Master's wife had to get up once or twice at night, so she slept outside. Master Lu gently walked past her and got out of bed. He picked up Table Mountain's axe and walked out the door. Master's wife quickly put on her shoes, put on an outer garment, and went to the central room with Master Lu. Click. After a slight sound, the door bolt was finally pried open. The door was pushed open from the outside. A person in black walked in. But what welcomed him was an axe shining with cold light. That person was an expert. A normal thief would have been split in half by the axe. He hurriedly took a step back in an attempt to avoid Master Lu's axe. However, although he managed to avoid it, his clothes were split in the middle, and his belt was also torn apart. The other 4 people behind him and quickly pulled out their swords. One of them pulled him aside and thrust his sword at Master Lu. Mistress Nan's gaze turned cold. "You want to hurt my man?" With a flick of her finger, 3 Tang Huan needles flew towards that person. Master's wife, and Master Lu's master, Lu He blocked 2 of them, but the remaining one hit his arm. An unusual pain came from his arm. He frowned and said with a ferocious expression, "There's poison." Master's wife shot out another round of hidden weapons. This time, it wasn't just the master's master needles, but also her poisoned darts. Gu Xiaoshan didn't stay idle either. He took out his newly made mechanical box and threw it at the group of people in the courtyard. "Xiaoshan." Master Lu hurriedly closed the door on one side and used his axe to block Gu Xiaoshan and Master's wife to his side. With a few loud bangs, the door was shot into a sieve. Master Lu wiped his cold sweat and said to Gu Xiaoshan, "Next time you make a hidden weapon, can you make one that doesn't hurt your own people?" Gu Xiaoshan scratched his head. Oh, he made many. The only one that didn't hurt him was given to Gu Jiao. The rest were all indiscriminate attacks. The one just now was the newest one. He hadn't tried it yet. "I thought it was a success this time," he muttered. Master's wife and Master Lu worked together to take care of the 5 people in the yard. Master's wife looked at the men in black who were lying on the ground and frowned in confusion. "Only 5 came? I heard that there were 6 of them just now." "Ah!" Gu Yan's scream came from the backyard. Their expressions changed, and they rushed to the backyard. When they arrived, they saw Gu Yan holding a stick with both hands, and a man in black who had been knocked unconscious by his stick was lying on the ground. "Everyone, you knocked him unconscious?" Gu Xiaoshan asked in a daze. This was simply too unbelievable, okay? Gu Yan puffed out his small chest and said proudly, "Yes." Gu Xiaoshan couldn't help but give Gu Yan a thumbs up. "Brother, from now on, I have a whole new level of respect for you." "But," Gu Xiaoshan frowned, "why did you call him unconscious? I thought he did something to you." Gu Yan held the stick and said, "This is more imposing." Gu Xiaoshan, Gu Yan's sneak attack was successful purely because that person stepped into the trap in the backyard and inhaled the knockout powder scattered from the eaves. As they were talking, there was a sudden whoosh from the front yard, followed by fireworks exploding in the sky. Master Lu threw an axe over and knocked the struggling man in black unconscious. Master's wife looked at the fireworks above her head and said with a serious expression, "It's a signal. They're gathering their companions nearby. We can't stay here any longer. Hurry and leave. Don't pack your things." Money was a small matter. Escaping for their lives was a big matter. Gu Yan rushed into the house and took the golden lantern that Gu Jiao had brought back from the Lantern Festival. He didn't take anything else. Master's wife went back to the house to put on her clothes and took a few masks. Although she didn't pack, she still took the banknotes that were convenient. Master Lu carried her hidden weapons and poison on his back. We can't forget this. This is the antidote for Chongqing. Master's wife took the medicine bottle from the table and put it in her arms. On the other side, Gu Xiaoshun and Gu Yan went to call Master Meng. However, Master Meng was in a deep sleep and couldn't be woken up even if 5 bolts of lightning struck him. I really have to hand it to you. Gu Yan was mad. Xiaoshun, you can carry him. I'll do it. Master Lu walked into the house and handed the basket on his back to Gu Xiaoshun. Go and prepare the carriage. Okay. Gu Xiaoshun agreed. He and Gu Yan went to the stable, took the horse out, put it on the carriage, and opened the back door. Master Lu carried the sleeping Master Meng on his back. Gu Yan and Gu Xiaoshun also sat on the carriage. Master's wife sat on the outside seat and grabbed the reins. I'll drive the carriage. I'm more familiar with the terrain of Chengdu. After Master Lu put Master Meng in the carriage, he came out and sat with her. I'll look after it for you. Okay. Master's wife didn't refuse. In the middle of the night, a carriage drove out of Willow Lane and left on the quiet street. There was no curfew in the outer city of Chengdu, but at this time, there weren't many carriages on the street. Their carriage would be very eye-catching. Go to a crowded place, Master Lu said. Where's the crowded place? Master's wife asked subconsciously. Heavenly Fragrance Pavilion. Gu Yan lifted the curtain and said, Heavenly Fragrance Pavilion, the place where Gu Chengfeng sang opera. Now, only that street was bustling all night. That was the best place to go. Master's wife turned the carriage and rushed in the direction of Heavenly Fragrance Pavilion. Quick! They're over there. Hearing the assassin's voice, Master's wife clenched the reins in her hand. Not good. They're catching up. This time it wasn't 5 black-clothed men, but a total of 10. 10 assassins leaped onto roofs and vaulted over walls, following the loud sound of horse hooves and the clunky sound of the carriage wheels. They gradually closed in. I see the carriage. Go. Remember to capture the 2 young ones alive. Kill the rest without mercy. Yes. The black-clothed men split into 2 groups, 5 on the left side of the road, 5 on the right side of the road, surrounding the carriage. Following the leader's hand gesture, everyone used qinggong to soar into the sky in the night. They pulled out their long swords and slashed open the carriage. The horse was frightened, and with the sword energy cutting the reins on the horse's back, the horse fled in panic in the night. At this time, no one cared about the horse. Everyone surrounded the collapsed carriage. Who did it? The leader was fierce. I said to keep the 2 young ones alive. What if they died? Everyone lowered their heads. The leader pointed at the black-clothed man beside him. You go take a look. Yes. The black-clothed man who was pointed at bravely walked forward, using his long sword to pry open a collapsed carriage wall, but found that there was no one in the carriage. He turned back and said, Leader. They ran away. The leader narrowed his eyes. They can't have gone far, split up and chase. Did they leave? In a small shop that was closed, Madame Nan asked in a small voice. Master Lu slowly poked his head out of the wall, leaning against the wall and looking outside. Seems like they left. Phew. Madame Nan leaned against the wall and sighed in relief. This group of people's breath is different from the ones just now. They are death warriors, very difficult to deal with. Gu Yan's expression suddenly became a bit strange. Gu Xiaoshun noticed his strangeness and asked, Are you okay? Does your heart hurt again? No. Gu Yan shook his head. I just feel there's danger. As soon as he finished speaking, a sword energy cut through the air. Master Lu and Madame Nan each held a child and dodged to the side. The sword energy fell to the ground. An innocent water tank was hit and split open on the spot. Old Mr. Meng, who was tied to Master Lu's back, was shaken awake. However, in the next second, his head hit the wall and he was knocked unconscious again. Master Lu, did you hit something just now? But I didn't feel any pain. Digression. I seem to have updated too quickly. The latest chapter of this book is not finished. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster and more complete. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found on the internet are all here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_8964/1063-04207. HTML Genius remembered this site's address in a second. www.zhbqg.com Biku Go mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 789. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are all available here. Two men of sacrifice jumped into the courtyard. Nan Shinyang said to Master Lu, "Take them away first. I'll block them for a while." Master Lu said, "No. Take them away. I'll block them." Nan Shinyang said angrily, "If you say any more nonsense, I'll divorce you." Nan Shinyang's martial arts were abolished, but she was an expert in using poison and concealed weapons. Her chances of winning were much higher than Master Lu, who couldn't even beat the Horse King. Humph! None of you are allowed to leave. The men of sacrifice attacked. Nan Shinyang directly threw 6 darts over, opening a path for Master Lu and the others. "Go quickly." Master Lu gritted his teeth, grabbed Gu Shaoshun with one hand and Gu Yan with the other, stepped on the ground, and flipped over the wall. Unfortunately, Master Lu and the others were not far away before the remaining men of sacrifice caught up with them. The 8 people blocked all their escape routes. The leader of the men of sacrifice said, "Hand over the 2 little ones, and I'll leave your corpse intact." "Bah!" Master Lu said coldly. "Come at me if you have the guts. I'll see what skills you have." After he finished threatening, he whispered to the 2 disciples, "Do you still remember how to use the mechanism box?" The mechanism box he spoke of was not a half-finished product made by Gu Shaoshun. He made it himself. It was something that could really save their lives. But it took a lot of time to make. He had only made 2 so far and gave them to the 2 children. He and Nan Xiang didn't have any. The 2 nodded. Master Lu lowered his voice and said, "In a while, I'll hold them back. You guys split up and find a place to hide. Use the breathing technique I taught you to hide your breath." He always disagreed with Nan Xiang's various impulsive actions. For example, don't be enemies with the imperial family of Zhao country. Don't come to Yen country and take risks. You're only a master's wife, not a biological mother. But when it came to a real life and death situation, he still didn't hesitate to sacrifice his own life to find a way out for the 2 children. Gu Shaoshun grabbed Gu Yan's wrist. "I know, father." The word father made the tip of Master Lu's nose sour, and a swollen pain surged up his throat. Shaoshun usually only called him Shifu, but she would occasionally call him adoptive father. This was the first sound, and also the last one. Tears flashed in Master Lu's eyes. When one got older, it was easy for their eyes to leak urine. He smiled and said to the men of sacrifice in front and behind him, "Come on. Come at me together if you have the ability." The Death Warriors didn't waste any time talking to him. They raised their swords and rushed towards him. "Old Master Meng, I'm sorry. The 2 children can't run away with you. I can only wrong you to stay with me." Master Lu untied the ropes on his body. Old Master Meng had just woken up when he was thrown to the side of the road by Master Lu. He fainted again. Old Master Meng. Master Lu wasn't a match for these Death Warriors, but he fought as if he didn't care about his own life, forcibly carving out a bloody path. Originally, it was Gu Shaoshun who was grabbing Gu Yan. Unexpectedly, Gu Yan's wrist suddenly turned, and he grabbed Gu Shaoshun's wrist instead. "Let's go," he said decisively. The 2 of them rushed out of the street and fled for their lives in the empty night. In order not to let the 2 children's hearts soften, Master Lu didn't cry out even when he was stabbed. He just gritted his teeth and swallowed all the pain back into his throat. However, a few death warriors still chased after them. "There's a well over there." Guyen looked at the empty space in front of him and said, "Go. Hide in it." Gu Shaoshun was very good at swimming. He pulled open the well cover and jumped down first. Then he raised his head, wiped the water droplets off his face, and reached out to Guyen. "Jump down, I'll catch you." Guyen stood beside the well and stared at Gu Shaoshun, whose eyes were filled with encouragement. He smiled slightly and grabbed the well cover forcefully. Gu Shaoshun suddenly panicked and whispered, "Guyen, what are you doing?" Guyen said, "Don't make a sound." Gu Shaoshun paddled and tried to climb up. "Hey, come down. I'm your older brother," Guyen said. "This time, it's my turn to protect you." His body was very weak, and his strength was very little. He almost used up all the strength in his arms to cover the heavy well cover. Then he broke into a run. As he ran, he said to the people on the other street, "Let's split up. You go that way." The death warriors who chased after them decisively ignored the well and split into two groups to chase after them. Guyen ran forward with all his might. He had been sick for the first 16 years. He would pant after walking a few steps. After the operation, he finally understood how easy it was to be a normal person. He had never run so wildly before. He felt his heart contract violently, and there was a majestic power flowing through his body. Was this the body of a normal person? It felt good. He felt it. "Stop. Otherwise, I'll make a move." A death warrior stood on a roof not far away and shouted at Guyen. Of course, Guyen didn't stop. He used all his strength to run forward. He was like a child who had never eaten candy before and wanted to eat it all at once. He also wanted to run as fast as he could. The death warrior's mission was to capture someone alive. It was said to capture, not invite. It didn't matter if he was slightly injured or seriously injured. It was fine as long as he was still breathing. The death warrior saw that Guyen didn't follow his orders. His eyes turned cold. He jumped up and slapped at Guyen's back. He didn't know that Guyen was a weak person. This slap was enough to injure Guyen's heart again. At this critical moment, the sound of horse hooves that were as swift as lightning came from the night sky. Almost at the same time, a red-tasseled spear with a murderous aura shot towards the death warrior like lightning and directly pierced through the death warrior's shoulder. The death warrior let out a mournful scream. The strength of the red-tasseled spear was beyond the death warrior's imagination. The death warrior didn't have any strength to fight back and was directly knocked over. He fell heavily on the hot bluestone street. Gu Jiao rode the Black Wind King and rushed over with a cold expression. She pulled the reins and blocked in front of Guyen. She coldly looked at the death warrior who was bleeding nonstop. "Who allowed you to touch my brother with your dirty hands?" The death warrior kept vomiting blood. He pulled out the dagger at his waist, but before he could make a move, the Black Wind King stomped on his chest, and he died on the spot. Gu Jiao pulled out the red-tasseled spear. The other death warrior saw that the situation wasn't good and ran away. He wanted to find his companions. But could he run away? Gu Jiao's red-tasseled spear was like a sharp blade in the hand of the King of Hell. It didn't give him a chance to escape and instantly pierced his heart. Gu Jiao took back the red-tasseled spear and rode the Black Wind King back to Guyen's side. Guyen was in a sorry state. The tuft of hair on his head couldn't stand up and drooped listlessly. Guyen stared blankly at Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao reached out her hand to him. Guyen guiltily gave his hand to Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao pulled him up and sat behind her. Gu Jiao said seriously, "You're acting like an older brother now." Guyen's eyes flashed. He stretched out his arm and hugged Gu Jiao's waist. He put his head on Gu Jiao's body and said shamelessly, My head seems to be a little dizzy. Did I run too fast? My heart also hurts. Is my heart disease acting up again?" Gu Jiao closed her eyes and held the reins tightly. Biological brother, biological brother. Don't be angry, Gu Jiao brought Guyen to find Master Lu and Madame Nan. Madame Nan had already escaped from the small courtyard and was surrounded by 6 people with Master Lu. Perhaps the mission this time wasn't too difficult. The men of sacrifice sent by the Han family weren't too strong. Gu Jiao and the Black Wind King quickly took care of them. Madame Nan and Master Lu were slightly injured. Fortunately, they weren't seriously injured. Old Master Meng didn't treat them as dead people. No one targeted him. He was fine. Gu Jiao and Gu Yan went to the place where Gu Shaoshan was hidden. Gu Jiao removed the manhole cover and pulled Gu Shaoshan, who had almost reached the top, up. Gu Shaoshan was wet. Even her eyelashes were dripping with water. Sister. He was very surprised to see Gu Jiao, but thinking of something, he glared at Gu Yan with hidden bitterness. Don't do this in the future. It was so dangerous. In terms of running, could Gu Yan outrun him? He was the #1 village tyrant of Qingchuan village. He was a fast runner from 10 miles away. It would be more appropriate for him to be the one to lead the enemy away. Gu Yan curled his lips and snorted. He whispered, I'm the older brother. Gu Jiao took the State Preceptor Hall's token out of the inner city tonight. If she had been a step late, the consequences would have been unimaginable. Lord State Preceptor, I owe you another favor. Madame Nan and Master Lu were covered in cuts and bruises. Gu Shaoshan and Gu Yan were also in a sorry state. Even if they had the State Preceptor Hall's token, they would still be strictly checked. And they didn't have the inner city's token, so it was impossible for them to enter the city. As for their original residence, it was already targeted by the Han family, so it wasn't safe. Gu Jiao said, let's find an inn to stay for the night. Madame Nan and Master Lu's injuries need to be treated as soon as possible. It's just a small injury, Madame Nan said indifferently. Jiao Jiao, who are those people? Gu Jiao replied, they're the Han family's death warriors. Being targeted by the Han family, they had to settle Madame Nan and the others in a safe place as soon as possible. But where was the best place? Digression. The recent updates were too fierce. My soul was hollowed out. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel is more complete and updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are all here. https://www.zhbqg.com/8964-2_8964-282/1063035881. HTML Genius memorized this site's address in a second. www.zhbqg.com Biku Go mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 790. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. Gu Jiao was now living in the State Preceptor's Hall. Her first reaction was to bring her family to her side. But then she felt that it was inappropriate. She was living in the State Preceptor's Hall because she was ordered to treat the Crown Princess. It was still acceptable to take in 2 patients who came here because of its reputation. But it was a bit strange to bring her fellow countrymen who came to Yen Kingdom with her. It would easily make the Emperor of Yen Kingdom suspicious. I have to think about it tonight, Gu Jiao said in her heart. The few of them stayed in the inn. Gu Jiao took out iodophor and golden sore medicine from the first aid kit. She carefully cleaned the wounds of Nan Shinyang and Master Lu. Most of the injuries were superficial. Master Lu had been protecting Nan Shinyang and was slightly more seriously injured than Nan Shinyang. I told you not to rush over. Nan Shinyang glared at him. Master Lu chuckled. I have thick skin and can take a beating. Trained by fighting with the Horse King. Gu Jiao finished treating all of Master Lu's injuries and reminded him, don't let the wounds get wet first. They will be fine in a few days. Are you injured? Nan Shinyang asked. I'm not injured. Gu Jiao said. Yan and Xiaoshan are not injured either. Nan Shinyang let out a long breath. It didn't matter to the two adults, as long as the children were fine. Master Lu asked, by the way, Jiao, why did you leave the city in the middle of the night? Gu Jiao took out the state preceptor's hall token hanging on her waist. I have this. My goodness, she even got the state preceptor's hall token. This girl was doing well in the inner city. Too many things had happened recently. The length of the note was limited, so she didn't have time to tell Nan Shinyang and the others. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Gu Jiao told Nan Shinyang and Master Lu what had happened recently. Gu Xiaoshan and Gu Yan also came over after changing their clothes. They also heard Gu Jiao's heavy news. Everyone's focus was different, but they were all surprised by the same thing. Jiao took the Han family's Black Wind Cavalry. Gu Chongqing was injured. Empress Dowager and Old Chancellor came to the Yen Kingdom. In comparison, although the Crown Prince and Imperial Concubine Han's fall from the horse was also shocking, it did not garner much attention. They were more concerned about the situation of their own people. That's how it is. Gu Jiao concluded with a single sentence. The person involved was very calm, but Master Nan and Master Lu's hearts had long been set off stormy waves. The water in the pool that was Xingdu had been stirred up, and the situation had reached a state of mutual hostility. The 10 great aristocratic families seemed to be united, but in fact, they all had their own selfish motives. Currently, there were 5 clans that the Jiao clan had information on. However, if the Nangong clan was included, there were still 6 clans left. Among them, the conflict with the Han clan was the most intense. The Nangong clan doesn't seem to have made any movements recently. Madame Nan said thoughtfully. The Nangong clan had indeed been too quiet recently. The only time they were in the limelight was during the selection of the Black Wind Cavalry's commander. The Nangong clan's legitimate daughter represented her family and did not hesitate to ruin her own reputation to pull Han Ci down. Because she did not succeed, she suddenly became a laughingstock. Master Lu snorted. Nangong Li's death was too big a blow to them, and the Crown Prince also fell from a horse. The Nangong clan may have to think carefully about whether they should follow a different master. The Nangong clan, who held the power of 400,000 soldiers, was now in high demand. Once the Han clan fell, the Nangong clan would enter the ranks of the 10 great aristocratic families. It was unknown whether they would have this opportunity. It's getting late. You should all go and rest. Madame Nan stopped the conversation in time. Otherwise, it would have continued until dawn. They had nothing to do, but Jiao was working around the clock. The 3 children returned to their respective rooms. Gu Xiaoshan and Gu Yan shared a room. Gu Jiao shared a room, and old Master Meng also had a single room. Not long after Gu Jiao laid down, Gu Yan came over. He climbed onto the bed and lay down next to Gu Jiao. Then he did not say a single word and only hugged Gu Jiao's waist. He gently rested his chin on her shoulder and breathed in the air that made him feel at ease. Gu Jiao laid flat on the bed and quietly looked in the direction of the curtains. He said with a trace of pleading, "Don't be angry at me, okay? I won't be like this in the future." Gu Jiao raised her hand, one arm behind her head and the other holding his hand. There are too many emotions in this world that I can't feel. Only through you can I cross that black and white zone. I'm very nervous right now. Can you feel it? Gu Yan asked. I can feel it. My pulse is beating very fast. Gu Yan's face darkened. Who told you to take my pulse? There's also excitement, happiness, pride. Gu Jiao felt all of it. It's so good to be a normal person. It's so good to be an older brother who can protect his family. Also, how can I run so fast? Haha, I'm really an arrogant baby Yan. Gu Jiao looked at the top of the curtains. Oh, I'm really an ox. Although they tossed around until midnight last night, Gu Jiao still got up before the sun rose. The sky was gray, and a piece of white seemed to be about to roll over. Gu Jiao sat up and found 2 small boxes by the pillow. She was dazed for a while, before she remembered that Guyen seemed to have stuffed something in her hand when he left. She was a little confused at the time and didn't pay much attention to it, so she casually put it by the pillow. As for why there were two, after Guyen left, Gu Xiaoshun seemed to have come over. He also stuffed something in her hand. Is this a mechanical box? Gu Jiao took it in her hand and looked at it. These two mechanical boxes were given to Gu Xiaoshun and Gu Yan by Master Lu to save their lives. Last night was so dangerous, but the two were unwilling to use them, so they gave them to Gu Jiao without hesitation. It's obviously Master Lu's handiwork. Gu Xiaoshun couldn't make something of this level. Gu Jiao more or less understood the importance of these two mechanical boxes. She dressed neatly, washed up, and quietly went next door. Gu Yan and Gu Xiaoshun were sleeping soundly. Gu Yan's sleeping posture was very good. He could stay motionless for the whole night. Gu Xiaoshun's sleeping posture was originally quite bad, but in order not to kick Gu Yan, he forced himself to endure. Gu Jiao put the mechanical boxes back into their pockets. Gu Jiao left a note in her room, saying that she was going out and would come back in the afternoon. She was going to solve the problem of her accommodation. She went back to the State Preceptor Palace. Her grand aunt was still sleeping. Gu Jiao didn't wake her up and went directly to Xiao Heng's room. Little Jing Kong didn't have classes today, so he got up early and went to the courtyard to plant a tree. Xiao Heng had just changed his clothes and looked like he was going out. When he saw Gu Jiao coming back, he hurriedly asked, "How is it?" Only he and the State Preceptor knew that Gu Jiao went out to save people last night. Gu Jiao said, "The Han family took action. Everyone is fine. They are resting at the inn tonight. I think it's time to arrange a place for them to live. Let's live in the inner city." Xiao Heng said, "Anyway, the Han family has their eyes on us. There is no difference between the inner city and the outer city. The Han family won't expect us to have the guts to bring them to the inner city." Gu Jiao thought it was feasible. Xiao Heng said, "I have been looking for a house these days. The guarantor said yesterday that there is a small courtyard that meets my needs. Do you want to go and have a look?" Before Gu Jiao could answer, little Jing Kong stood on tiptoe outside the window and showed half of his little head. "I also want to go. I also want to go." Two people took the little trumpet spirit and sat in the carriage. When they arrived at the agreed-upon location with the guarantor politely cupped his hands in greeting. He didn't inquire about the identity of the other two young masters that Xiao Heng had brought over. He only said with a pleasant expression, "Young Master Long has arrived. I've already greeted the owner of the small courtyard. We can go take a look now." The guarantor led the way in front. Gu Jiao whispered, "Why are you still using Long Yi's name? What are you going to do when you sign the lease document?" Xiao Heng also whispered, "Granduncle made a fake travel permit. It's enough to fool the guarantor." Gu Jiao secretly gave him a thumbs up. "Granduncle, you are awesome." Little Jing Kong held the two adults' hands and jumped around happily. The family arrived at the house mentioned by the guarantor. It was a relatively quiet old street. Most of the residents had moved away. The area looked old, but the furnishings in the house were new. The lighting and ventilation were excellent. Xiao Heng looked at the guarantor, who was negotiating with the owner of this small courtyard, and said to Gu Jiao, "This place is very close to Lingbo Academy. Go through the alley in front and take a carriage east. We will arrive there in a quarter." Since Gu Yan and Madame Nan were hunted down, then Gu Jiao of Kanglan Women's Academy, who was related to Xiao Lulang, would soon become the target of the Han family. Gu Qingfeng had to disappear from the academy immediately, and little Jing Kong would continue to be a day student in the future. "Do you like it?" Gu Jiao asked little Jing Kong. Little Jing Kong didn't answer immediately. Instead, he looked at Gu Jiao and asked, "Lulang, did you choose this house?" Gu Jiao blinked and nodded. "I chose it. I let Long Yi choose it." Little Jing Kong stretched out his little arm. "Then I like it." The corner of Xiao Heng's mouth twitched. However, Gu Jiao and Xiao Heng weren't very satisfied. They had a lot of people. This small courtyard looked big, but there were only 3 rooms for them to live in. "Aren't there 5 rooms?" The guarantor and the owner of this small courtyard discussed. The owner said, I want to use 2 of the rooms as storage. I have to put some things in. Well, it turned yellow again. The guarantor wiped off his cold sweat and said to Xiao Hong, Then, young Master Long, I will take you to other places to look. In the end, they weren't satisfied with a few places nearby. Little Jing Kong pulled Gu Jiao's hand. Lu Lang, do we have to rent a house on this street? Gu Jiao said, No, it's mainly because it's close to the place where you go to school. Little Jing Kong, Oh, then what if there's a house even closer? How can there be a house even closer? The guarantor said confidently, I've been a guarantor for 30 years, and all the best houses in the broker house are in my hands. This street is the closest to the Lingbo Academy. You can't rent any more houses than this. Before he could finish his sentence, he saw little Jing Kong silently take out a house deed from his pouch. The guarantor. Xiao Hong was annoyed. Why didn't you tell me earlier that you have a house deed? Little Jing Kong crossed his arms and snorted. I won't give it to you if you ask me. Jiao Jiao, I'll give it to you if you ask me. The guarantor found a shady tree to check the authenticity of the house deed, so he didn't hear their conversation. Xiao Hong said, Jiao Jiao used to live in the outer city. He couldn't even live in such a small house. I didn't see you take out the house deed. Little Jing Kong felt wronged. He spread out his hands and said, Jiao Jiao was looking for a house in the outer city. I don't have one in the outer city. His words were like a country bumpkin asking a rich friend for a punitive expedition. Why didn't you lend me your car last night? The rich friend said, You said you could lend me a Xiaoli. I don't have a Xiaoli, I only have a Ferrari. Gu Versailles Jiao, I admit defeat. Xiao Heng's teeth hurt even more. He changed from Zhao State to Yen State. Was his landlord still the little monk in front of him? How much did he owe the little monk in his previous life? The little landlord stuck out his chest and shook one of his little feet proudly. I'll rent it to you at a cheap price. 500 taels a month. Xiao Heng's body trembled. Little monk, you're raising the price. While they were fighting with wits and courage, a horse carriage slowly came and stopped beside Gu Jiao and the other 2. Then, the window was opened and Second Master Jing stuck his head out. Qing, Lu Lang, why are you here? Oh, who's this little devil? Little Jing Kong angrily glared at him with his hands on his waist. You're the little devil. Ah, I remember now. You're that. During the 3 days when Gu Jiao was in a coma after the selection of the Black Wind Cavalry's commander, Second Master Jing accompanied Duke and to visit Gu Jiao at the State Preceptor Hall and met little Jing Kong. However, little Jing Kong was wearing the Academy's uniform at that time and looked like a little scholar. Now that he was dressed like an ordinary young master, it was hard to recognize him. I'm not that. I'm Jing Kong. Little Jing Kong seriously corrected him. Second Master Jing laughed. Yes, that's your name. You even saved the little commandery princess. You're a little hero. So much nonsense. You're even blocking me from seeing my daughter. Today, I want to beat up my stupid brother again. Duke N's eyes were as sharp as knives. However, Second Master Jing and his eldest brother had no tacit understanding. Gu Jiao walked over and looked through the window. When she saw Duken, her mood suddenly became very good. When Duken saw Gu Jiao, he couldn't hide the smile in his eyes. After knowing that Gu Jiao was looking for a house, Duken proposed to let her live in the Duke's mansion. Oh, Gu Jiao hesitated. Seeing her frown, Duken dipped his fingertips in water and continued to write on the armrest. The Duke's mansion has protectors. It's safer than living outside. He wrote you, not you. As smart as Duken was, he had already guessed that Gu Jiao wasn't looking for a house for herself at this juncture. She was living well in the State Preceptor's palace. There were few places in Shangdu that were safer than the State Preceptor's palace. Second Master Jing took little Jing Kong to catch cicadas on a big tree on the street. Xiao Hong and the guarantor discussed the matter of renting a house under the shade of the tree. Only Gu Jiao and Duke were in the carriage. Gu Jiao considered the possibility of living in the Duke's mansion. Duke continued to write, It's also close to Lingbo Academy. It's convenient to send that child to school. Gu Jiao looked at the words on the armrest and was stunned. I didn't mention little Jing Kong. How did you know that he wanted to live there? You're as smart as the state preceptor. Seeing Gu Jiao's adorable look, the smile in Nguogong's eyes almost overflowed. He couldn't make any expression. Otherwise, the corners of his lips would reach his ears. He wrote, there will be delicious food and drink every day. There will also be many guards and endless money to spend. At this moment, Duke Un was a bad guy who was trying to coax children. Gu Jiao widened her eyes and asked, but didn't the Duke's mansion give away all its wealth? You earned it again. Duke Un wrote with a smile in his eyes. The look in his eyes seemed to be saying, your adoptive father is just an ordinary little business genius. Gu Jiao raised her eyebrows and said seriously, it doesn't matter if it's money or not. I just want to cultivate a relationship with you. Duke Un laughed in his heart. Gu Jiao wasn't a pretentious person. She didn't say that if they went, they might bring danger to him. She was Duke An's adopted son. Duke An's mansion had been involved in this dispute for a long time. Or it could be said that Duke An's mansion had never gotten out of this dispute. From the moment Duke An used up all his wealth to collect the bodies of the Shenyuan family sons, he had already announced his position to the entire Yan kingdom. Gu Jiao told Xiao Heng about Duke An's proposal. Xiao Heng always felt that Duke An had a father-in-law's hostility toward him. If it was in the past, he wouldn't have agreed so easily. But when he thought of the little monk's ugly little face, he felt that Duke An's mansion wasn't that hard to accept. He would never admit that he was stingy. 500 taels a month. Xiao Heng paused. There's also the Inner City Talisman Festival for Madame Nan and the others. I'll think of a way. Gu Jiao said, oh, there's no need. Duke An said he can get it. Xiao Heng felt like he was shouted at. He didn't even have a chance to show off in front of Jiao Jiao. Why do I feel an indescribable sense of crisis? Was it too late to change his mind and rent the little monk's house? After the accommodation was settled, Gu Jiao decided to go back to the inn. Little Jing Kong wanted to go with her, but he was dragged back by Xiao Heng. Xiao Heng said obnoxiously, you're now my little follower. Little Jing Kong went crazy. Bad brother-in-law is not cute at all. In the inn, old Master Meng finally woke up. He stood in front of the wash basin with his messy hair and looked at the reflection of his pig's face in the basin. There were 10,000 black wind kings galloping in his heart. Who beat up this chess saint? He couldn't remember what happened last night at all. When Gu Jiao came to the inn, they all got up and gathered in old Master Meng's room. Master Lu didn't dare to say that he was the one who hit old Master Meng, so he shamelessly pushed the blame to the guards and men of sacrifice of the Han family. Old Master Meng was successfully led astray and made a mark on the Han family in his heart. Gu Jiao told him about her plan to move. In the afternoon, Duke An's mansion will send the inner city talismans to the inn. We'll move in at night. So fast. Gu Yan was surprised. It'll take half a day to get the inner city talismans. The inner city talismans were not a small matter. Generally, the government office was not qualified to issue talismans to people from other countries. Even if it was, it would take a few months. Gu Jiao said, Duke An said he has a way. After saying goodbye to Gu Jiao, Duke An immediately went to deal with it. Although the talismans were tricky, there was a family that had the privilege to issue them. That was the Mu family. Old Master Su was the governor of Sheng City and had a good relationship with Honglu Temple, who was in charge of foreign affairs. Duke An asked Second Master Jing to invite Mu Qingchen over. After Gu Jiao left Qinqiang Academy, Mu Qingchen rarely went there. He had been living in the Su family these days, so he came over quickly. Duke An, you look good, Mu Qingchen said. I'm much better than before. Duke An wrote on the armrest. Mu Qingchen stood beside him and looked at the words on the armrest. He couldn't help but be amazed. A living dead who had been in a coma for 3 years had recovered to such a surprising extent in less than 3 months. Gu Jiao participated in the selection of the Black Wind Cavalry's commander as Duke An's adopted son. In the end, Gu Jiao won. In other words, this strong opponent was sent to the field by Duke An. However, Mu Qingchen didn't have a grudge against Duke An because of this. He didn't even ask why Duke An adopted a young man from Zhao country. They got along with each other as usual. Duke An continued to write, "Qingchen, to tell you the truth, I have a request." "Go ahead." Duke An wrote his request solemnly on the armrest. He knew that this matter was very abrupt and difficult to handle. However, it was an emergency. Mu Qingchen's method was the fastest way he could think of. "When do you want it?" Mu Qingchen asked. This was a promise. Although he knew that Mu Qingchen wouldn't refuse his request, he still heaved a sigh of relief. He wrote, "Today. The sooner the better." It took at least 10 days to half a month for a local to apply for the Talisman Festival in the inner city. It took a month for people from other countries to get it through the examination of Honglu Temple. After going through all the procedures, it would be lucky to get it in the 3rd month. "Okay, I'll bring it to you before dinner." Mu Qingchen agreed almost without hesitation. He didn't ask who Duke An was doing it for. Duke An wrote, "Thank you, Qingchen." Mu Qingchen said, "I promised Enin that I would take good care of you." Duke An looked at Mu Qingchen's back and sighed in his heart. Since Gu Jiao and her family were going to move in, the miscellaneous people in the manor naturally had to leave. "What did you say?" In Mu Ru Xian's courtyard, her personal maid looked at Manager Zheng in disbelief. "My young mistress is living well in the Duke's manor. Why does she want to move out?" Steward Zheng smiled and said politely, "Miss Mu has been in the Yen Kingdom for so long. I'm sure you're homesick. The High Duke's condition has improved, so he doesn't dare to force Miss Mu to stay in the residence." His words were beautiful, but didn't they mean the same thing? "Please take care of it." Manager Zheng took the brocade box from the servant behind him and handed it to Mu Ru Xin. "This is a token of appreciation from the Duke. Although he has already paid the consultation fee, since Miss Mu wants to go back, he has also prepared the travel expenses for you." The maid was furious. "Who said my young mistress wants to go back? My young mistress hasn't become the daughter of the Duke's manor yet." Mu Ru Xian's reaction was calmer than the maid's. Actually, this wasn't the first time the Duke had expressed his intention to let her go. When the Duke was able to write freely, he had tactfully expressed his thanks to her. But at that time, the Duke didn't give her enough face in front of a third person. It was she who didn't want to go. Coincidentally, the second madam had accidentally sprained her waist when she went to pick flowers. She thought the second madam had stayed in the name of treating her waist injury. Mu Ru Xin said, "There's no need to rush. The second madam's waist injury hasn't healed yet," Manager Zheng said with a fake smile. "The manor has already invited a doctor for the second madam. She doesn't dare to force Miss Mu to stay and let Miss Mu suffer from homesickness." No matter how thick-skinned Mu Ru Xin was, she couldn't act shamelessly in front of a few servants. She said, "Then I'll pack up tonight." Manager Zheng smiled. "The carriage has already been prepared for you. It's just at the entrance. The guards have also been selected to escort you back to the Qin Kingdom. Of course, if you want to enjoy the Yen Kingdom's local customs, they will also follow you and wait for your orders." Mu Ru Xian's face burned. How was this rejecting her? It was clearly driving her out. Mu Ru Xian said with a calm expression, "I still have some private matters to attend to in the city these few days. Once I've settled down, I'll send the address over. If the Duke and the second madam need anything, you can come find me at any time." "That won't be necessary." Mu Ru Xian took a deep breath and calmed her emotions. She said, "Please wait for a moment. I have some things 17 or 18 capable maids swarmed in, waiting for orders in an orderly manner." "Yes." Mu Ru Xian dazedly said the last word. She didn't want to speak again for the rest of her life. Less than an hour later, Manager Zheng politely escorted Mu Ru Xian and her servant to the carriage. Mu Ru Xian looked at the Duke's manor that she had stayed in for half a year. She was still somewhat unwilling. Outsiders only knew that the Duke had spent all his wealth for the Xian Yuan family, but only those who had stayed in the Duke's manor knew how much wealth the Duke had accumulated over the years. Since ancient times, scholars were lofty and didn't like the stench of money. However, the Duke of An was different. He wasn't a greedy person, but he understood the importance of money. He could afford to let go of his status as a scholar. The more time they spent together, the more Mu Xin admired the Duke of An, and the more she wanted to become the apple of his eye. It was a pity that she had worked so hard for so long, but all her enthusiasm had gone down the drain. Mu Xin opened her mouth. "I haven't had the time to say goodbye to the second madam." Manager Zheng decisively waved his hand. "Goodbye. See you again." Digression. I'm especially moved after seeing everyone's comments. Quite a few readers have privately messaged me, saying that Jiao Jiao has brought them a lot of joy and passion. I want to say that all of you have also brought me a lot of strength and emotions. Here's a tribute to the legend of the cat demon. The Prime Minister is truly amazing with all of you. The latest chapter of this book isn't finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel will be updated even faster. Millions of novels can be read for free. Novels with content that can't be found on the internet can be found here. https://www.zhbqg.com/8964-2_89642826/1062833707. HTML Genius will remember this website's address in a second. www.zhbqg.com Pen Fun Pavilion's mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 792. The latest chapter of this book isn't finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel will be updated even faster. Millions of novels will be read for free. Novels with content that can't be found on the internet can be found here. Mu Xin was so angry that she almost fainted. She didn't understand what was going on. She was obviously getting along well with the Duke, but the Duke suddenly changed his attitude and asked her to leave. Did something happen? Or did someone put a bad taste in the Duke's mouth? When the carriage was about 10 feet away from the Duke's residence, Mu Xin looked at the Duke's residence for the last time. Who knew that she would see a few carriages from the Duke's residence, with the leading one being the second Master Jing's carriage. The second Master Jing didn't need to get out of the carriage to return to his own home. The manservant respectfully opened the main door for him. The second Master Jing was bored in the carriage, so he lifted the curtain to take a breath of fresh air. With this breath of fresh air, Mu Xin saw the figure of a young man beside him. Mu Xion's pupil shrank. It's him, Xiao Lulang. Why is he sitting in the second Master Jing's carriage? The carriage slowly entered the Duke's residence, and the two carriages behind it followed closely. Mu Xin didn't see who was sitting in the carriage behind them, but that wasn't important. All her attention was on Xiao Lulang. In an instant, a message suddenly flashed through her mind. Humans were a strange species. It was obviously the same thing, but due to different states of mind and expectations, it would lead to different conclusions. Mu Xin recalled her situation in the Duke's residence. The more she thought about it, the more she felt that the Duke's relationship with her was very harmonious. It was only after this Xiao Lulang from the Zhao kingdom appeared that the Duke slowly distanced himself from her. The Duke's attitude towards her took a nosedive after she had a big fight with Xiao Lulang at the entrance of the Grand Preceptor Hall. But at that time, didn't the chess sage of the 6 countries support Xiao Lulang? Xiao Lulang didn't suffer any losses. Mu Xin thought that they would have a big fight. In fact, Gu Jiao was too lazy to argue with her and didn't even bother with her. She was the one who jumped up and down. Old Master Meng couldn't stand it anymore and directly came out to humiliate her. As for saying that the High Duke got along well with her, that was purely a figment of one's imagination. The High Duke used to be in a coma and was like a living dead. How could he get along with her? The High Duke's attitude towards her plummeted, not because he knew what happened at the entrance of the state preceptor's hall, but because the High Duke could right now. He had wanted her to leave for a long time. The first thing the Duke wanted to write when he woke up was, Mu Ru Xian, dismiss her. However, he didn't have enough strength, so he only wrote a single Mu character. Jing Sheng, that simple-minded person, mistakenly thought that the Duke was worried about Mu Ru Xian. Second Madam had also misunderstood the Duke's intentions. Coupled with the unrealistic dreams of her maidservants, she completely believed that she could one day become the daughter of an aristocratic family in the Upper Kingdom. The maidservant asked doubtfully, Miss, who are you looking at? The carriage had already entered the High Duke's residence, and the door was closed. There was no one outside. Mu Ru Xian put down the curtain and said softly, Xiaolulang. The maidservant also lowered her voice. Is he the High Duke's adopted son? Mu Ru Xian frowned. Adopted son? What adopted son? The maidservant said in surprise, Miss, you still don't know? The High Duke took in an adopted son, and that adopted son participated in the selection for the Black Wind Cavalry's commander. I heard that he won. In the future, the High Duke will have a son who can be a commander. Miss, do you think the High Duke's residence will be overturned? Mu Ru Xian's face darkened. Why didn't you tell me earlier that the High Duke took in an adopted son? The maidservant lowered her head and embarrassedly grabbed her handkerchief. Miss, you always go to Second Madam's courtyard. I thought Second Madam had already told you. Second Madam didn't mention a single word to her. She loved her so much and praised her as if she was the only one in the world. But in the end, she didn't even hide the news of taking in an adopted son from her. Are you sure it's Xiaolulang? She asked coldly. The maidservant said, I'm sure. I heard Second Master Jing and Second Madam talking about it with my own ears. Both of them were quite happy and said that they didn't expect that brat to be so capable. Mu Ru Xian was so angry that she threw the teacup on the table. Why was it that she couldn't become the High Duke's adopted daughter even after working so hard for so long, while Xiaolulang, that despicable and shameless person from a lower country, could become the High Duke's adopted son? She was the one who cured the High Duke. So why did Xiaolulang take advantage of her? She couldn't accept it. She couldn't accept it. The High Duke's residence occupied a large area. Under the old Duke, it was divided into East and West residences. The Second Madam lived in the West residence, while the High Duke lived in the East residence. At that time, the old Duke was thinking that after he passed away, the two brothers would live further apart so that there would be less unnecessary friction. This caused the Second Madam to die. The Second Madam was in charge of the High Duke's residence and had to run over from the West residence every day. Why was she so skinny? It was all because she was tired. Needless to say, Second Master Jing was just his eldest brother's little tail. He would go wherever his eldest brother went. Before they came, the High Duke had already discussed with Gu Jiao about her needs and arranged a courtyard with 3 entrances for her. There were enough rooms for each of them to have one room, and there were still some left over. The servants were also carefully selected and were very tight-lipped. The carriage stopped directly in front of Feng Courtyard. The High Duke had already been waiting in the courtyard for a long time. After Madame Nan and the others got off the carriage, they saw the High Duke sitting under the crabapple tree. He was sitting in a wheelchair, facing the direction of the door. Although he couldn't speak or move, his joy and welcome were written in his eyes. Master Lu brought Madame Nan forward and greeted the High Duke. High Duke, I'm afraid we'll have to disturb you for the next few days. The High Duke wrote on the armrest, We won't disturb you. My son's family is my family. My son. The two were stunned. Didn't you know that Lu Lang was a girl? Are you addicted to acting like you have a son? Gu Jiao didn't hide anything about the High Duke from her family. The only thing she didn't say was about Jing Yining. She didn't even tell the High Duke about this. All right, since one of you is willing to be the father and the other is willing to be the son, Then so be it. Jiao Jiao's adoptive father is very powerful. Master Lu looked at the words on the armrest and couldn't help but sigh. Because they were standing face to face, the High Duke wrote all the words upside down to make it easier for the two of them to recognize. You're worthy of being the Pearl of Yen Kingdom. Master Lu's voice was a bit loud, and the High Duke heard it. The High Duke wrote, What Pearl of Yen Kingdom? Master Lu was embarrassed. This madam then smiled and explained, It's a rumor in Jianghu. They say that you're talented and knowledgeable. You're also a celestial beauty. You're a literary star from the 9 heavens. So the people of Jianghu gave you a name, the Pearl of Yen Kingdom. The High Duke's legend, when he was young, was no less than Shen Yuan Cheng's. One of them was a scholar, and the other was a martial artist. They were the envy of all the men in the world. They were also the dream lovers of all the women in the world. You don't have to be so polite, the High Duke wrote. He was referring to the honorifics. They were both Gu Jiao's elders. They were of the same generation. There was no need to distinguish who was superior. The first meeting was very pleasant. Duke was essentially a scholar, but he did not have the arrogance of those scholars outside. He was approachable, honest, and generous. Even Gu Yan, who was always picky, felt that he was an elder who was easy to get along with. Gu Jiao and Madame Nan went to distribute the rooms. The High Duke sat quietly under a tree. He asked the servants to turn the wheelchair around so that he could see Gu Jiao all the time. Looking at her made him very happy. It was as if he had regained something important that he had lost. His heart was filled to the brim. Gu Yan suddenly stuck out a small head from behind the tree. This is for you. Gu Yan put a small clay figurine on the armrest on his left hand. The High Duke wrote with his right hand, What is this? Gu Yan went in front of him and squatted down. He fiddled with the clay figurine on the armrest and said, It's a greeting gift. I made it myself. After learning from Master Lu for so long, Gu Shaoshan had perfectly inherited his master skills. Gu Yan had only learned how to play with clay. Gu Yan looked up at him and asked, It's my sister. Do you like it? It turned out to be a human. The High Duke was speechless. He almost thought it was a monkey. After tidying up the room, Gu Jiao had to go back to the master's hall. First, she wanted to see Gu Changqing's injury. Second, she wanted to pick up her grandaunt and son-in-law. The High Duke walked her to the door. Gu Jiao pushed his wheelchair towards the door. When they passed by an elegant courtyard, Gu Jiao asked unconsciously, Whose courtyard is that? The High Duke wrote, Yinin's. Do you want to go in and see? Yes. Gu Jiao nodded. The servants put a board on the threshold to make it easier for the wheelchair to go up and down. Gu Jiao pushed the High Duke in. Although this was Jing Yinin's courtyard, Jing Yinin had died before she could move in. There were 2 swings in the courtyard and some orchids. It was very elegant and unique. After the High Duke showed Gu Jiao around the front yard, he went to Yinin's boudoir. This was the most exquisite and luxurious room Gu Jiao had ever seen. Even a random Eastern pearl used as a decoration was priceless. These things are... Gu Jiao pointed at the strange small weapons on the shelf. The High Duke wrote, These are gifts from Yinin's grandfather. Gu Jiao's eyes fell on a painting scroll. He also sent a portrait. Can I see it? The High Duke wrote without hesitation, Of course. This portrait was sent with the sword and bow in the box. It must have been accidentally put in the wrong box. He wanted to send it back, but he didn't have a chance. The things in the box were sent by Shen Yuan Li before he went to war. When they met again, Shen Yuan Li was already a cold corpse. Gu Jiao opened the portrait and was stunned. Huh? Wasn't this the portrait she saw in the study in the purple bamboo forest? It was a general wearing armor and holding Shen Yuan Li's red tasseled spear. His face was empty. Is this Shen Yuan Li? Gu Jiao asked. No. The High Duke said, Yinin's grandfather didn't have this set of armor. Shen Yuan Li's most famous armor was his golden armor. He also had a few sets of silver armor and black armor, but it wasn't this set. Gu Jiao tilted her head. Then who was this person? Why was he able to hold Xian Yuan Li's weapon? Why did the state preceptor and Xian Yuan Li keep his portrait? Could he be the third little clay figurine in the peach garden with Xian Yuan Li and the state preceptor? The very important person that the state preceptor mentioned, who was also a teacher and a friend. Digression. Do you have a monthly ticket for me to secretly add a new chapter? The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found on the internet are all here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_896/106278729. HTML Genius remembers this site's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Bikuga mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 793. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. There are novels with connotations that cannot be found online here. Regarding the military camp, Dukan was not very clear. It could be a general of the Xian Yuan army. After all, there were many generals under Xian Yuan. Dukan was a junior, so he did not know most of them. Gu Jiao put the portrait back. Old Master Meng did not live in the Duke's public house with them. The reason was that something happened at the chess manor, and he had to go back to deal with it. Gu Jiao was not worried about his personal safety, so she let him go. Dukan sent Gu Jiao to the door. The door of the Duke's public house was open for her. Steward Zheng stood in the open space with a smile. Behind him was an incomparably luxurious carriage. The canopy was made of superior yellow pear wood. The top was inlaid with eastern sea pearls. There were 2 layers of hanging curtains. The inner layer was a bamboo curtain, and the outer layer was a broken jade bead curtain. It was said to be broken jade, but in fact each piece was carefully carved jade, agate, and suet jade. 2 tall white horses pulled the carriage. They were strong and strong. Gu Jiao blinked. This is... Steward Zheng walked forward with a beaming face and bowed respectfully to the 2 of them. Hi, Duke, young master. He then said to Gu Jiao, this is the carriage that I prepared for young master. I wonder if young master is satisfied? Dukan was very satisfied anyway. Only such a luxurious carriage was worthy of her. Gu Jiao thought to herself, isn't this a little too exaggerated? Won't I be robbed if I go out in this kind of carriage? Forget it. It seems like no one can rob me. Thank you, foster father. Gu Jiao thanked Duke An and was about to sit in the carriage. Young master, please wait a moment. Steward Zheng smiled and stopped Gu Jiao. He took out a brand new banknote from his wide sleeve. This is your small allowance today. Pocket money? 100 taels? So much? Gu Jiao coughed lightly and asked Manager Zheng in a low voice, are you sure it's for a day and not for a month? Manager Zheng smiled and said, it's just 1 day. The High Duke asked young master to take a look first. If it's not enough, he'll give more. Rich and inhumane, this was. Gu Jiao suddenly had an illusion. It was just like in her previous life, when the rich parents in her class sent their children out. Not only did they give them luxury cars, but they also gave them a huge sum of pocket money. The only thing missing was the sentence, don't come back until you've spent it all. Oh, so this is what it feels like to be a rich second generation. That's right, it's pretty good. Gu Jiao accepted the banknotes seriously. Seeing her accept it, a smile appeared in the bottom of Duke An's eyes. Gu Jiao said goodbye to Duke An and left in the carriage. Manager Zheng came behind Duke An and pushed his wheelchair. He chuckled and said, Duke, let me push you back to your courtyard to rest. Duke An wrote on the armrest, go to the accounts room. Manager Zheng asked, it's getting late. Why are you going to the accounts room? Dukan wrote, to earn money. Earn a lot of money for her to spend. Gu Jiao went to the state preceptor's palace. Her great-aunt and son-in-law were taken out for a walk by little Jingkong. Xiao Heng was in Shangguanyan's room. Zhang Dequan was also there. They seemed to be talking to Xiao Heng. Gu Jiao didn't go in. She went directly to the secret room at the end of the corridor. The small medicine box was always there. She could enter the operating room at any time. Gu Jiao hurried back to change the dressing for Gu Chongqing. When she entered the ICU, she found that the state preceptor was also there. The dressing had been changed. Has he woken up? Gu Jiao asked. No. The state preceptor said, have you finished? Gu Jiao nodded and said, yes, I've settled everything. The first sentence was an answer, and the second sentence was a voluntary explanation. It didn't seem strange. But from Gu Jiao's mouth, it was enough to show that Gu Jiao's trust in the state preceptor had reached a higher level. Gu Jiao stood in front of the bed, looked at the unconscious Gu Chongqing, and said, but I have a doubt in my mind. The state preceptor said, go ahead. Gu Jiao said thoughtfully, I just thought of it on the way back to the state preceptor's palace. According to the information brought back by the emperor's grandson, Imperial concubine Han thought that concubine Wang Xian framed her. The Han family should take revenge on the Wang family. Why did they hurt my family? If it's to pull the crown prince down, so many days have passed. The Han family's reaction is too slow. The state preceptor didn't show any surprise at her doubts. Obviously, he also noticed something. He didn't directly give his thoughts, but asked Gu Jiao, what do you think? Gu Jiao said, I'm thinking, is there a mole among the 5 people of Imperial concubine Wang Xian? They told Imperial concubine Han about Shangguanyan's fake injury to frame Imperial concubine Han and her son. Imperial concubine Han then told the Han family. The state preceptor looked at Gu Jiao with a meaningful look. Gu Jiao received the look from him and slightly frowned. There is no mole. The Han family took the initiative to attack, not for Imperial concubine Han, but for speaking of this. An idea flashed in her mind. I will take over as the commander of the Black Wind Cavalry. The Han family wants to use my family to threaten me and force me to give up the commander position. You're not too stupid. The state preceptor said coldly, then turned to the medicine cabinet and took out a bottle of anti-inflammatory medicine. You won't go smoothly in the Black Wind camp. You'd better be mentally prepared. I know. Gu Jiao said. You go do your work. The state preceptor lightly said, don't you still have something to do? He suddenly became so cold, more and more like a godfather. Is he my godfather or not? If so, I can bully him back. In her previous life, her godfather's strength was too high, so she was always the one who was beaten. Why are you looking at me like that? The state preceptor noticed Gu Jiao's gaze that was full of bad intentions. Nothing. Gu Jiao's face didn't change as she withdrew her gaze. You don't know martial arts, so you're easy to bully. Don't let me find out that you're my godfather. Otherwise, I'll beat you up before I recognize you and get back at you for what you did to me in my previous life. Xiao Lulang. The state preceptor suddenly called Gu Jiao, who had already walked to the door. Gu Jiao turned her head. What's the matter? The state preceptor said, if Gu Chongqing wakes up and becomes a cripple, Gu Jiao said without hesitation, I will take care of him. Gu Jiao still had to send her grandaunt and son-in-law to the duke's residence, so she temporarily left this matter to the state preceptor. However, just as she stepped out of the secret room, the state preceptor's foot came to the bedside. On the bed, Gu Chongqing's eyelids moved slightly, and he slowly opened his eyes. It was just a simple action of opening his eyes, but it almost used up all his strength. The entire intensive care unit was filled with his heavy breaths from the oxygen mask. The state preceptor calmly looked at Gu Chongqing. Are you sure you want to do this? Gu Chongqing used all his remaining strength to nod. After Mu Ru Xian saw Gu Jiao outside the duke's residence, her uneasiness reached its peak. She firmly believed that it was that person from Zhao Kingdom who instigated her relationship with the Duke of An Kingdom. A truly capable person would disdain to put down their status and use flowery words. However, that person from Zhao Kingdom curried favor with the chess sage of the Six Countries and the Duke of An Kingdom. It could be seen that he was a flatterer. Mu Ru Xin hated herself for being too virtuous and disdaining to use underhanded means. Otherwise, how could she let a person from Zhao Kingdom take advantage of her? The more Mu Ru Xin thought about it, the angrier she became. Since you did it, don't blame me for doing it 15 times. Mu Ru Xin found an inn to stay in. She said to the guards of the Duke's residence who were escorting her, "Go back. I don't need you by my side. I will return to Qin country by myself." The leader of the guard said, "But the Duke ordered us to safely send Miss Mu back to Qin country." Mu Ru Xin raised her chin and said, "No need. Go back and tell your Duke that I appreciate his kindness. If I have the chance to visit Yen country again, I will definitely pay him a visit." The guards tried to dissuade her, but when they saw that Mu Ru Xin had already made up her mind, they didn't continue to pester her. The leader of the guards had Mu Ru Xin write a letter to express her intention to return to Qin country by herself. Only then did he lead the rest of his brothers back. Once the guards of the Duke of An Kingdom left, Mu Ru Xin called a maid to hire a carriage and left the inn by herself in the carriage. The Han family had been in troubled times recently. First, the Han family's disciples had met with mishaps. Then, the Han family lost the Black Wind Cavalry. Now even Imperial Concubine Han and her son had been plotted against and lost their positions as Imperial Concubine and Crown Prince. The Han family's vitality had been greatly damaged and couldn't bear any more losses. How could it fail? On the main seat in the central room, old Master Han, who seemed to have aged 10 years, rested his hands on the handle of his walking stick as he spoke. Han lay, and Third Master Han stood on either side of him. Fifth Master Han was recuperating in the courtyard and didn't come over. In the current atmosphere, even Third Master Han didn't dare to show the slightest bit of disobedience. Old Master Han continued, "Furthermore, why are all the men of sacrifice who are highly skilled in martial arts dead, but the guards are fine? It wasn't that they were fine, but they still had a life." The men of sacrifice had encountered Gu Jiao so naturally, none of them survived. As for the guards who went to the courtyard to snatch the people, they were only injured and knocked unconscious by Madame Nan and the others. Han Lei said, "The bodies of those men of sacrifice have been brought back. After the coroner examined them, he said they were killed by a spear." Old Master Han narrowed his eyes. "Spear? Xiao Lulang?" Xiao Liulang's weapon was the red-tasseled spear. Old Master Han couldn't think of anyone else who could kill so many men of sacrifice of the Han family in one breath other than him. Han Lei said, "He's not the real Xiao Lulang. He's just a person from the Zhao Kingdom who took on Xiao Liulang's identity." Old Master Han coldly said, "No matter who he is, this person will definitely be a great threat to our Han family." During the conversation, the steward of the Han family hurriedly walked over and stood outside the door to report, "Old Master, someone outside the door is asking for an audience." Old Master Han didn't even ask who it was. He said sternly, "Didn't you tell him I'm not receiving guests?" Now that they were at the cusp of the storm, the Han family couldn't casually interact with people. The steward said embarrassedly, "That girl said she's a divine doctor from the Qin state and can cure the Crown Prince's injury." Digression. Big Brother has really done a lot for Jiao Jiao. The latest chapter of this book isn't finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster and more complete. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with a deeper meaning that can't be found on the internet can be found here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_8964226/106262190. HTML Genius remembers this website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg Biku Go mobile reading website. MZHHBQG. Com. Chapter 794. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found on the internet are available here. Today, Zhang Dequan came to inquire about Shang Guanyan's condition. According to the plan, Xiao Hong told Zhang Dequan that Shang Guanyan woke up for a while during the day and fell asleep again in the afternoon. Zhang Dequan was overjoyed when he heard this and hurried back to the palace to report the good news of Shang Guanyan to the king. When Wang Xian and the other 4 people in the palace heard that Shang Guanyan woke up, they couldn't help but panic. Originally, they still had a glimmer of hope, thinking that Shang Guanyan was just scaring them and wouldn't really dare to perish together with them. But now, Shang Guanyan's awakening was undoubtedly the last wake-up call for them. They must find something that could move Shang Guanyan as soon as possible and redeem their weakness in Shang Guanyan's hands. At night, after little Jing Kong was bathed by his bad brother-in-law, he climbed onto the bed and fell asleep after jumping twice in dissatisfaction. Gu Jiao and Xiao Hung had a discussion. Little Jing Kong was now his little follower, so it was best for him to stay with him. After Shang Guanyan recovered enough to return to the palace, he would find an excuse to take little Jing Kong to live in the Duke's mansion. I said, let's go to Uncle's house and stay for a few days. Anyway, the emperor's grandson didn't have many months left to live. His last wish would be fulfilled by the king. Gu Jiao felt that it was feasible. After the two finished talking, they went to her grandaunt's place. Gu Jiao had originally planned to pack up her great-aunt's things, but who knew that she would see her great-aunt sitting on the chair with her legs crossed and eating melon seeds. The old chancellor had a bundle in each of his hands. Everything is packed, let's go. Gu Jiao's mouth twitched. You are too self-conscious as a son-in-law. The Han family even had their eyes on Martial Aunt Nan. San Lan Women's Academy's Miss Gu was no longer safe. Gu Jiao called Gu Chengfeng and went to the Duke's mansion in the carriage. Nguoping usually slept early, but tonight, in order to wait for the 2 elders, he forced himself to stay awake until now. Gu Jiao didn't say much about her identity. She only said that her real name was Gu Jiao and that she was from the Zhao kingdom. She didn't mention anything about the Marquis's daughter or the protector commandery princess. As for Empress Dowager Zhuang and the old chancellor, she only said that they were her great-aunt and son-in-law. An Guogong was a noble in Shangguan, but since he cared about Gu Jiao, he would respect Gu Jiao's elders. The carriage stopped at the gate of Maple Courtyard. Duke N's gaze was fixed on the carriage. When Gu Jiao jumped down from the carriage, the entire night seemed to be lit up by his gaze. It was a kind of steadiness and joy that came from looking forward to seeing their child. Empress Dowager Zhuang glanced at him and was carried off the carriage by Gu Jiao. The old chancellor went down by himself. Empress Dowager Zhuang, Jiao, you're so thick-skinned. Go by yourself. Butler Zheng pushed An Guogong to the 2 elders with a smile. Hello, old Master Hua and old Madam Hua. An Guogong wrote on the armrest, please forgive me for not being able to welcome you personally. Gu Jiao said to her great-aunt, Duke said that he welcomes you very much. Empress Dowager Zhuang glanced at her. I don't need you to translate. The little girl's heart was biased. Gu Jiao said to An Guogong, great-aunt is very satisfied with you. Empress Dowager Zhuang's mouth twitched. How could she see that she was satisfied? You're siding with an outsider a little too quickly. Humph. Empress Dowager Zhuang snorted and walked into the courtyard with a strong aura. Gu Jiao took the bag from the old chancellor and sent her great-aunt to the decorated room. Great-aunt, what do you think of Duke? Empress Dowager Zhuang said expressionlessly, you didn't ask me at that time. How about Lu Lang? Gu Jiao blinked. The melons are cut. I'll go get them. She flashed out of the room. Empress Dowager Zhuang was angry and amused. She muttered carelessly, he looks better than your father in Lord Protector's manner. great-aunt, great-uncle. It was Gu Yan's excited roar. Empress Dowager Zhuang had just secretly taken out a candied fruit. She was so scared that her hand shook, and she almost dropped the candied fruit. Gu Yan, you've changed. You weren't so noisy before. After more than 3 months, Gu Yan and Gu Xiaoshun finally saw their great-aunt and son-in-law again. Both of them were very happy. But when they smelled the unconcealable smell of medicine and wine on the two elders, their eyes dimmed again. Are you hurt? Gu Yan asked. Empress Dowager Zhuang waved her hand carelessly. It was raining that day. I fell. It's okay. It was very painful to fall at such an old age. Gu Yan's eyes were slightly red. Gu Xiaoshun lowered his head and wiped his eyes. Okay. Aren't you fine? Empress Dowager Zhuang couldn't bear to see the two children suffer. She pulled Gu Yan's lapel. Let me see your wound. I don't have a wound. Gu Yan raised his small chin and said. Empress Dowager Zhuang really didn't see a wound on his chest. She frowned. Didn't you have an operation? Was it to coax you? Gu Yan's eyes flashed, and he fell into Empress Dowager Zhuang's arms exaggeratedly. Yes, I haven't had an operation yet. I'm so weak. My heart hurts. My heart disease is acting up again. Empress Dowager Zhuang slapped his forehead. She was sure that this boy was alive. It's here. Gu Xiaoshun pulled Gu Yan's right arm. The wound under the armpit is so small. He gestured with his fingertips. I applied scar cream. It's almost invisible. Empress Dowager Zhuang also wanted to see it. Gu Jiao and Dukan sat in the corridor to enjoy the cool air. Dukan couldn't turn his head, but he could feel the joy from the inside, even if he could only hear the noise inside. After losing Xin Yuanzi and Yi Nin, the East Mansion hadn't been so lively for a long time. Second Master Jing and Second Madam often brought the children to accompany him, but the liveliness didn't belong to him. He had been lonely for too long. It was so long that his heart was almost numb. It was so long that he didn't want to wake up after becoming a living dead. He wanted to die in the endless darkness countless times. But his silly younger brother invited famous doctors to extend his life countless times. Now, he was very grateful to his younger brother, who never gave up. Gu Jiao looked and asked, Are you thinking about something? Yes. Dukan wrote. What are you thinking about? Gu Jiao asked. Dukan hesitated for a moment, but he still wrote truthfully. I'm thinking that you being by my side is like Yi Nin being by my side. That kind of feeling in the bottom of his heart was the same. Oh. Gu Jiao looked down. Dukan hurriedly wrote, Don't misunderstand. I'm not using you as Yi Nin's substitute. It's okay, Gu Jiao said. I can't tell you the truth now, because I still don't know where my fate lies. When everything is settled, I'll definitely tell you frankly. It was late at night. The two young men, Gu Yan and Gu Xiaoshun, weren't sleepy at all, but Duke and's great-aunt and son-in-law were having a headache from the noise. Especially Gu Yan. After recovering from his heart disease, his killing power was comparable to little Jing Kong's. Because they hadn't seen each other for a long time, he had a lot to say. He was even more talkative than little Jing Kong. Duke and's great-aunt slumped in the chair, soullessly. She had misjudged the cold and taciturn little Yen back then. It was time for Duke and to rest. He bid farewell to everyone, and Gu Jiao pushed him back to his courtyard. Gu Jiao pushed the Duke along a quiet path. Behind her were Gu Yan and Gu Xiaoxuan's laughter. The night breeze was very gentle, and they felt very comfortable. When they arrived at Duke and's courtyard, Steward Zheng was talking to a guard. Steward Zheng nodded to the guard. I know. I'll tell the Duke. You can leave now. Yes. The guard cupped his fists and left. Steward Zheng paced back and forth at the door. When he was about to go to Feng Courtyard, he raised his head and saw that Duke and had returned. He hurriedly walked forward. Duke. Dukan asked him with his eyes, What happened? Steward Zheng didn't have any scruples because of Gu Jiao's presence. He said truthfully, The guard who escorted Mu Ru Xin has returned. This is Mu Ru Xin's handwritten letter. Dukan, please take a look. Gu Jiao took the letter. She opened it and placed it on Duke An's armrest. Steward Zheng hurriedly ran into the courtyard and took out a lantern to light it. The letter clearly stated that Mu Xin wanted to return to the country by herself. She had already disturbed them enough during this period of time, so she didn't want to trouble the Duke's family anymore. The letter was very polite, but if she was sent away like this, it would be difficult to explain to the Duke. If something really happened to Mu Xin, the Duke's family would be blamed for not treating her well. They actually let a weak girl leave the manor alone and get killed on the street. Thus, the guard followed her for a while, hoping to make sure she was all right before returning to report. Who knew that they would follow her to the Han family? She went in? Gu Jiao asked. Steward Zheng looked at Gu Jiao and said, "Young master, she went in. Our manners guard said that she stayed in the Han family for half an hour before coming out. She then returned to the inn, took her luggage, and brought her maids into the Han family. She hasn't come out yet." Gu Jiao said faintly, "It seems like she has a new thigh to rely on." Steward Zheng said, "I think so too. I heard that Han Shizi's leg was crippled. She might have gone to be a doctor for Han Shizi. This person is really..." In front of his little master, he swallowed the unpleasant words he was about to say. "Let her be," Gu Jiao said. With her medical skills, it was hard to say whether she could cure Han Yi. The Duke didn't care about Mu Xian's whereabouts. He wrote, "Keep an eye out. There might be people coming to the manor to inquire about news." Steward Zheng's brain was very flexible. He immediately understood the Duke's meaning. "You think that Mu Xin will inform the Han family? Say that the young master's family has moved into our manor? Don't worry. She won't be able to guess it. Even if she guessed it, I have a way to deal with it." The latest chapter of this book isn't finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels can be read for free. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhpqg.com/8964-2_8964-2826106261050. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in a second. www.zhpqg.com Bikuga mobile reading website. zhpqg.com. Chapter 795. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster and more fully. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that cannot be found on the internet are all available here. When Gu Jiao returned to Feng Courtyard after sending the Duke off, Gu Yan and Gu Xiaoshan were forced to take a bath by her great-aunt. Her great-aunt's brain was buzzing. She finally did not have any energy to see anyone else. She closed the door and went to take a bath. Her great-uncle returned to his room. It was obvious that he had gone to wash up. Only Gu Qingfeng's room door was left ajar. There was no sound coming from inside. Gu Jiao went up to take a look, puzzled. No one would believe it. Gu Qingfeng was wandering around the room like an idiot, admiring every table and chair in the room. His eyes were full of disbelief. It was like a curious baby entering a magical paradise. Gu Jiao was confused. "I know the Duke's residence is good, but you are the son of the Marquis. Your quality of life is not bad. Is there a need for this reaction?" A normal person would not disturb Gu Qingfeng at this moment. But Gu Jiao was not a normal person. She was not a normal person at all. She pushed open the door with a crash. Gu Qingfeng was shocked by this sudden movement. He did not have time to retract the novelty and intoxication on his face before a layer of awkwardness floated up. That was a silly expression that Gu Jiao would not forget even after 10 years. "What are you doing?" Gu Qingfeng came back to his senses. He straightened his expression and asked Gu Jiao angrily. Gu Jiao strode into the room. She looked at the furnishings in the room and then looked at the embarrassed Gu Chengfeng. I should be the one asking you that. What are you doing? Gu Chengfeng's eyes flashed. I can't just look around. Gu Jiao hit the nail on the head. Not only are you looking, you are also touching. Gu Chengfeng choked and retorted fiercely. I'm not allowed to touch. Gu Jiao thought about it seriously. That's not it. Gu Chengfeng secretly sighed. Gu Jiao continued to ask, but why did you touch it? Do you have some weird fetish that no one knows about? Gu Chengfeng exploded. What do you mean by weird fetishes? What's wrong with touching it? Gu Jiao thought about it seriously and concluded, not really. Gu Chengfeng took the initiative and said, why aren't you going back? Was it good to stay in her brother's room in the middle of the night? Do you think you're really a man just because you're dressed as a man? Gu Jiao frowns and corrects him. Don't be rude. Call me granduncle. Gu Chengfeng, you still haven't forgotten about becoming sworn brothers with my grandfather? I forgot all about it. Gu Chengfeng hurriedly pushed her out. All right, hurry back to your room. Aren't you going to the barracks in 2 days? If you don't rest well and go out looking listless, do you want others to laugh at you? After Gu Jiao left, Gu Chengfeng decisively closed the door and bolted it. Then he came to the table, looked at the small ornaments on the table, and let out a long sigh. Why was it like this? Because he didn't expect it. In Zhao country, he had a home after all, and this feeling was not obvious. But after coming to Yan country, the loneliness of being in a foreign land was vividly displayed. When Gu Shaoshun and Gu Yan lived with everyone else, he could only lie in the unfamiliar Tianxiang pavilion. He also felt lonely, sad and lonely. Later, when he went to the State Preceptor Hall, he replaced Xiaoheng to go to school at Kanglin Women's Academy. He could only hide in the dark. Even his elder brother could lie in his own intensive care unit, but he could only quietly sleep in a room that didn't belong to him. After leaving in the morning, he couldn't leave any trace of himself in the room. It was as if he had never been there. He was a shadow. Everyone's shadow, except for his own. He thought that this time he would just hide in one of the rooms. But it turned out that was not the case. This room was for him, not for Kanglin Academy's Gu Jiao, not for Tianxiang Pavilion's Chongjing, but for Gu Chengfeng. Suddenly, he had a sense of belonging that was seriously accepted, and no longer looked at this family as an outsider. As Gu Chengfeng thought about it, the rims of his eyes started to sting. Suddenly, Gu Jiao poked her small head in from outside the window. Gu Chengfeng. Gu Chengfeng's body shook, and he carelessly wiped his eyes. He didn't turn around and very coldly asked with his back to the window, "What are you doing?" Gu Jiao threw something over. He caught it with his hand, and it was a medicine bottle. "What is this?" he asked. Gu Jiao said, "Medicine, apply it once in the morning, and once in the morning, apply it thinly." Gu Chengfeng was puzzled. "Why do I need to apply medicine?" Gu Jiao said, "The slave mark should have grown after so many days, and you can apply the medicine. If it hasn't fallen off in a month, you will have surgery." Gu Chengfeng's heart was fiercely rubbed again. So this girl remembers. She remembers everything. Damn it. Damn tears. It doesn't listen to me anymore. It wants to rebel. I can't stop it anymore. Gu Jiao left after giving him the medicine, but she quickly turned back and poked her head in to ask, "But why did you touch it just now?" Gu Chengfeng's tears beat the gong to retreat. Damn girl, is there no end to this? 2 days later, Gu Jiao rode the Black Wind King to the army camp. The horse King was also brought along. It was almost 3 years old, and it was time for it to receive training. The other Black Wind cavalry started training when they were young, and it was considered late. However, its talent was strange, and it wasn't worse than other Black Wind cavalry that had been trained at the same age. You can't be too sure. Gu Jiao glanced at the horse King that ran off to chase after Butterfly, and her expression was complicated. The Black Wind camp was generally divided into the vanguard, assault, and reserve camps. If one person and one horse were to be counted as a unit, the actual number of units that could participate in the battle was no more than 25,000. In reality, it was even less, because there was still the supply and reserve camps. However, the strength of the steel cavalry was astonishing, and it was the most invincible of all the soldiers. Under Xianyuan Li's leadership, there was once a glorious record of 20,000 Xianyuan steel cavalry trampling over 100,000 Jin soldiers. This was a cavalry that struck fear into the hearts of all countries. Gu Jiao was wearing her own black armor on the first day of her appointment, and she wore a cold and threatening helmet. She carried a red tasseled spear wrapped in cloth, looking valiant and formidable. The generals of the various camps had already gathered at the vanguard camp's training ground, waiting for the new commander of the Black Wind Cavalry. Gu Jiao looked at them from afar and said, their military posture is not bad. Under the scorching sun, wearing heavy armor, everyone was sweating profusely, but no one moved. These were the soldiers trained by the Xianyuan family. Even after 15 years, they still maintained their excellent and strict traditions and military discipline. The young soldiers were now in their prime, the young soldiers were now middle-aged, and the middle-aged soldiers were now in their twilight years. Their white hair and beards fluttered in the morning breeze, and the wrinkles at the corners of their eyes were old, but their posture was straight and their eyes were firm. In these years, there were people who retired and new blood joined, but as long as this army was still there, the soul of Xianyuan would never decay. There was a middle-aged man waiting outside the training ground. He was not wearing armor, and did not seem to know martial arts. When he saw Gu Jiao riding the Black Wind King over, he smiled and went up to greet her. The Black Wind King's aura was too strong, and when it raised its hooves, the middle-aged man was so scared that he took a few steps back. Gu Jiao patted the Black Wind King's neck lightly. "All right, boss, enough is enough." The Black Wind King quieted down. As expected of a horse from the army, it even knew how to show off its strength. The middle-aged man wiped off his cold sweat and carefully went up again. He cupped his hands and bowed. "This humble one greets Lady Xiao. This humble one's surname is Hu Yang, and I am the advisor of the Black Wind Camp. From today onwards, this humble one will be under your command." Advisor? Secretary? That's fine too. Gu Jiao looked at the soldiers, standing majestically under the morning light, and asked, "Among those people, is there anyone who wants to find trouble with me? You'd better think carefully about how to answer." Hu Yang smiled awkwardly and looked back at the crowd. He tried to move closer to Gu Jiao, but the Black Wind King did not flip out. Only then did he move closer and whisper, "General Zhang, who? He is Heir Han's trusted aide. You should be careful of him." Understood. Gu Jiao gestured for him to keep up, then urged her horse to move towards the soldiers. She stood in front of the crowd and bluntly said, "Where is Zhang Hu?" Zhang Hu, who was at the head of the first row, held a spear in one hand and a shield in the other. He arrogantly raised his chin and said, "I am Zhang Hu." Gu Jiao made an O sound and rode on the back of the powerful Black Wind King. She calmly said, "I heard that you want to find trouble with this marshal." Hu Yang, who was at the side, trembled. "Why are you so direct? You should at least say a few words." Zhang, who did not expect the other party to be so direct, and could not help but be stunned. But in the end, he did not put this brat from the Zhao country in his eyes. If he was exposed, then so be it. He was not afraid of him. He coldly snorted and said, "So what if I am?" Gu Jiao calmly said, "Your courage is commendable." Zhang, who ridiculed, "You're just a brat. Do you know how to train soldiers?" Gu Jiao faintly smiled. "Isn't it enough that you know? Otherwise, why would I keep you? Are you keeping it for fun?" "You." Zhang, who choked. He had never seen such a brazen and shameless person. This brat was openly admitting that he did not know how to train soldiers. But what he said at the end made so much sense. The marshal did not need to personally train soldiers. It was the duty of the generals. Damn it. Zhang, who raised the spear in his hand and pointed it at Gu Jiao. He coldly said, "If you have the ability, then don't use the Black Wind King. Fight with me." Gu Jiao found it funny and said, "I can control the Black Wind King. Can you?" Damn it. Zhang, who choked on his own saliva again. He almost couldn't breathe properly. This brat did not play by the rules. Provocation was useless. Zhang, who clenched his teeth and said, "I heard that you relied on sucking up to the House of Duke and the other aristocratic families. In the last round of selection, Mu Qingxin helped you. Taoist Qingfeng also helped you. That was why you had the chance to be the first to arrive at the fire beacon camp. So, sucking up to others is also your ability?" Gu Jiao did not defend himself. Instead, he asked, "Do you think you can suck up to others for free?" Zhang, who scoffed, "I don't care." Gu Jiao calmly said, "On the battlefield, this move of mine is called subduing the enemy without fighting. It is the best strategy. You played tricks on 5th Master Han. That is called all is fair in war. You went around stealing bamboo tubes to collect information. That is called looking at the big picture. KO. Zhang, who failed to smear Ling Yun's name. Instead, he became Ling Yun's stepping stone. He was in a bad mood. However, there was still more to come. Gu Jiao sat on the horse and took out the Black Wind camp badge from his waist. "My name is Xiao Lulang. I am the new marshal of the Black Wind Cavalry. Now, I will announce a new transfer. Zhang, who has committed a crime. According to the military regulations, he will be removed from the position of the Left General of the Vanguard Camp and will be replaced by Li Shun. Right Deputy General of the Reserve Camp, Tong Zhong, will be transferred to the Assault Camp. Zhao Dengfeng will be the Left Commander of the Vanguard Camp. Wen Rinchong will be the Right Commander of the Vanguard Camp." A series of transfer orders were issued. Anyone with a discerning eye could see that the Han clan's power had been uprooted. There was no hesitation or apprehension. This new marshal was very arrogant. Sir. Hu Yang stood beside Gu Jiao's horse and gave her a meaningful glance. Gu Jiao looked at him and asked, "What's wrong?" Hu Yang whispered, "Li Shun and Zhao Dengfeng have both left the camp. Wen Rinchong. He went to forge iron." Forging iron was a more common way of saying it. In truth, Wen Rinchong had been transferred to the reserve camp to repair weapons and armor. All day long, he was either tinkling or mending. His status was as low as it could get. The last time Hu Yang saw him was a year ago. He felt that he was no longer the Wenren general who made people tremble in fear. He was a blacksmith who had experienced the vicissitudes of life. Everyone could spit at him and look down on him. These three generals were once the trusted aides of the Xianyuan clan. Wen Rinchong had one of his fingers cut off by the enemy in order to protect Xianyuan Zi. Gu Jiao thought for a moment and said to Hu Yang, "Go and call him over." Hu Yang opened his mouth and said, yes." Hu Yang quickly went to the blacksmith shop in the camp. There were armors and weapons waiting to be repaired everywhere. The fire in the boiler was burning fiercely. The room was so hot that it was difficult to breathe. A bearded man was waiting for the iron to be heated. He sat on a stool and picked up a needle and thread. He lowered his head and repaired the armor on his legs. He wore a leather glove on his right hand. One of the finger sheaths was empty. Hu Yang excitedly entered the room. He almost fell to the ground from heat stroke because of the hot air in the boiler. He took a few steps back and stood outside the door. He shouted at the sweaty man inside, "Wen Rinchong, your good luck has come. The new commander of the Black Wind Cavalry has taken office and issued a transfer order. You can return to the Vanguard camp. Or do you want to be the right commander?" "I'm not going," Wen Rinchong said without raising his head. Digression. Today is another day of super hard work. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels that can't be found on the internet are all here. https://www.zhhbqg.com/89642_896422826/1062576332 HTML genius, remembers this website's address in 1 second. www.zhhbqg.com Biku Go mobile reading website. zhhbqg.com. Chapter 796. The latest chapter of the book is not finished yet. For more interesting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with inner content that can't be found online are available here. Hu Yang was puzzled. No, you don't understand, do you? Han is gone. The Black Wind Camp is Master Zhao's territory now. Master Zhao appreciates you, so he promoted you on the first day he took office. Don't be so ungrateful. I'm telling you. Wen Rinchong said, I said I won't go, so I won't go. Hey, you. Hu Yang put his hands on his hips and was about to point at him when a soldier walked over boldly from behind. Old Chong, is my armor fixed yet? Wen Rinchong didn't even lift his eyelids. He just pointed at the wall on the back left. It's done. It's on the third shelf over there. Go get it yourself. The soldier pushed Hu Yang aside. Hu Yang was an advisor in name, but he didn't have much status in the camp. The generals of the Han family didn't need an advisor. They had their own aides. To put it bluntly, he was just a decoration, a soldier's salary. Hu Yang staggered and steadied himself by holding onto the wall. He glared at the soldier and gritted his teeth. You little brat, don't you look where you're going? The soldier took his armor and swaggered away without looking at Advisor, Wen Rinchong. Advisor who only stood in front of the iron shop for a little while, but he felt like he was about to be roasted by the high temperature. He looked at Wen Rinchong, who was sitting next to the furnace. He couldn't understand how this guy could withstand the heat. Advisor who wiped his sweat with his sleeve and said earnestly, Wen Rinchong, you were a confidant of the Xin Yuan family. You should know that even if it wasn't the Han family, you wouldn't have a chance to be put in an important position in any other aristocratic family. You're just lucky to have met our Lord Xiao. Lord Xiao dared to risk offending all the aristocratic families, and even His Majesty to promote an old subordinate of the Xin Yuan family. Don't tell me you're not moved at all? Wen Rinchong continued to repair the armor on his leg. No. Advisor Mr. Who was rejected by Wen Rinchong. He turned around and complained about Wen Rinchong in front of Gu Jiao. That guy doesn't know how to appreciate favors. I'll go take a look, Gu Jiao said. As the commander-in-chief, she had her own tent. Inside the tent were the commander-in-chief's guards, similar to the orderlies in his previous life. Gu Jiao asked him to bring the Black Wind King and the Horse King to the training ground. Then she went to the blacksmith shop in the camp with Advisor who had intended to lead the way, but he was not as fast as Gu Jiao. Milord, my lord, ma. Teacher who watched as Gu Jiao made a right turn and walked towards the smithy. He scratched his head and said, Sir, you know the way. Have you been here before? Ah, right, sir came to the military camp for the selection. No, the selection was in the front. This is the reserve camp. Forget it, I don't care. When Gu Jiao saw Wen Rinchong was no longer repairing his armor. Instead, he was forging with a hammer. Gu Jiao's gaze fell on him. Due to the hot weather, his upper body was bare. His bronze skin was sweating profusely. Although he had not participated in the training of soldiers for many years, forging was still a physical activity. His muscles were very strong. Gu Jiao noticed that he was wearing a leather glove on his right hand. It was probably to cover his broken finger. Advisor who chased after them, sweating profusely. He bent over and supported himself with his hands on his thighs. He gasped for breath and said, Wen Chong. Lord Xiao. Lord Xiao has come to see you in person. Hurry and greet Lord Xiao. Wen Rinchong was not interested in the new commander-in-chief. He still did not look or hear. He waved the hammer in his hand and said, Repair the weapons on the left. Repair the armor on the right. Gu Jiao looked at the piles of damaged armor on both sides of the courtyard and asked, "Do we need to register?" "No." Wen Rinchong smashed the hammer again. A series of sparks appeared on the red-hot weapons. Gu Jiao asked, "Do you remember who these soldiers belong to?" Wen Rinchong was finally impatient. He frowned and looked at Gu Jiao. "Are you going to repair them or not? If not, don't block my light." He did not finish his sentence. His eyes flashed with uncontrollable surprise. He had not expected the new commander-in-chief to be so young. Gu Jiao's official age was 19, but she was actually less than 17. Didn't she look like a young and immature teenager? However, the teenager was full of righteousness. Her temperament was calm and collected. Her eyes were full of killing, intent, and calmness. Alas, how can you say that? Advisor, who was not as panting as before. He pointed at Wen Rinchong and said, "Zhang, who was punished for offending his superior. Do you want to be like Zhang, who?" Wen Rinchong lowered his eyes and continued to forge. "Whatever. Sai, you." Advisor, who was infuriated by him. Gu Jiao's reaction was quite calm. She glanced at Wen Rinchong and said, "Then I'll ask you again tomorrow." Then, she put her hands behind her back and turned to leave. Wen Rinchong looked at her straightened back and said lightly, "Don't waste your energy. It's the same no matter how many times you ask. I'm just a blacksmith." Gu Jiao did not reply, nor did she stop walking. She took Advisor, who, and left the place. Advisor, who sighed. "Master, don't be angry. Wen Rinchong has a bad temper. The Han family tried to rope him in, but he didn't know how to appreciate their kindness. Otherwise, how could he have been transferred to the reserve camp to be a blacksmith?" Gu Jiao nodded, as if she had taken his advice. She asked again, "You said that Li Shan and Zhao Dengfeng were not in the camp. When did they leave? Where are they now?" Advisor, who thought for a while and chose his words carefully. "They have been gone for 3 or 4 years. Li Shan left first, and Zhao Dengfeng left less than 2 months later. They used to be at odds with each other. As for where they are now, you go to the tent and rest for a while. I'll go to the training ground and ask around." "Okay." Gu Jiao went back to her tent. The tent was quite big. It was divided into 2 rooms by a screen. The outside was the meeting hall, and the inside was her bedroom. The luxurious furnishings in the tent had been moved away, but she could still see how luxurious the Han family was in the camp from the roof and the walls. The Xianyuan family had always been frugal. Although there were many fields and shops under their name, the money they earned was basically used to supplement the military camp. Sitting in the spacious tent, Gu Jiao felt an inexplicable sense of a familiar mission in her heart. "Did I get used to Jing Inin's identity so quickly?" Master, I've got it." Advisor, who panted as he walked into the tent. He bowed respectfully and said, Li Shan and Zhao Dengfeng are in a town outside the city of Shang." Gu Jiao asked, "How far?" Advisor, who wiped the sweat from his forehead and answered, "It's not too far. If we take the shortcut, we can get there in about 2 hours." It was her first day on the job. She was not familiar with the work, so it was not a big deal. Gu Jiao said, "Come with me." Were they really so swift and decisive? Advisor, who was stunned for a while, before he reacted. "Yes, I'll go prepare the carriage." Gu Jiao stood up, grabbed the red-tasseled spear on the shelf, and carried it on her back. "No need. Ride the horse." But she did not know how to ride a horse. The Horse King continued to stay in the camp for training. Gu Jiao rode on the Black Wind King, while Advisor, who rode on a Black Wind horse. Together with Gu Jiao, they went to Mount Qiushan where they were. Mount Qiushan was in a completely different direction from Qianxiong Academy. Gu Jiao had never been to the north of the city. She felt that it was not as lively as the south, but it was not desolate either. There was a cargo port in Mount Qiushan. Li Shan worked there as a coolie. There were people coming and going at the port. There were customers rushing to get on and off the ship, as well as able-bodied men working hard to move goods. Li Shan was very strong. He grabbed 3 sacks and carried them on his shoulders, while the others only carried one. Blue veins bulged on his forehead. Large beads of sweat dripped down like a waterfall onto the bluestone floor that was distorted by the scorching sun. They disappeared with a sizzling sound. Many able-bodied men were suffering from heat stroke. They sat weakly under the shadow of the cargo shed and panted. Gu Jiao could see that Li Shun was also suffering from heat stroke. However, he gritted his teeth and moved the 3 sacks into the warehouse before he could rest. He did not rest for long. Before he fully recovered, he walked toward the cargo ship again. Li Shun, advisor, who called out from his horse. Li Shun turned to look at advisor, who and said coldly, "You've got the wrong person." Advisor, who said seriously, "I'm not mistaken. You're Li Shun. Wang Dezhu. Come and move the goods." A boatman on the cargo ship shouted at him. "I'm coming." He jogged over, sweating profusely. Li Shun, advisor, who yelled dryly. In the end, he could not stop him. Gu Jiao sat on her horse and looked in Li Shun's direction quietly. What was his situation back then? Advisor, who said, "Sir, are you asking why he left the army? I heard that something happened to his family. His younger brother is gone, and his sister-in-law remarried with their child. He only has an old mother. He left the army to take care of his mother. But I don't understand why he even changed his name." "Where's Zhao Defeng?" Gu Jiao asked. Advisor, who hurriedly said, "He's in a restaurant 3 miles away. His situation is better. He opened his own restaurant, and I heard that business is good." As he spoke, he looked around and carefully said to Gu Jiao, "At that time, there were rumors that Zhao Dengfeng had already joined the Han family and had been secretly selling information to the Han family. He also had a hand in the Xianyuan family's defeat. Everyone did not believe it before. After all, he was Xianyuan Cheng's most valued lieutenant. But you see, sir, Zhao Dengfeng and Li Shun both left the army around the same time. Li Shun became a coolie at the docks, while Zhao Dengfeng got a windfall and opened a restaurant. Sir, please take a good look at it." Gu Jiao said, "So it was the Han family who gave him the money?" Advisor, who said in admiration, "Sir, you're wise. Let's go take a look." Gu Jiao said, "The latest chapter of the book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_89642826/106240230. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Bikugo mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 797. The latest chapter of the book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with a deeper meaning that could not be found online are available here. Zhao Dengfeng's restaurant was called the Crane Restaurant. It was quite famous in Mound Hill Town, so it was easy to find the way. Gu Jiao was wearing armor and riding the majestic Black Wind King. She looked like a general, but the birthmark on the left side of her face was a bit of an eyesore. When the waiters saw that the guests had arrived, he enthusiastically went out to greet them. "Dear guests, this way please." Advisor, who asked, "Is Zhao Defeng here? My master is looking for him." The waiter did not dare to offend them, as they were dressed like officials. He smiled awkwardly and said, "My boss is not available for guests at the moment. Boss Zhao, please have another drink with me. Don't drink from her. If you want a drink, drink from me." A woman's pretentious voice came from one of the rooms on the 2nd floor. It sounded like there was more than one person. The waiter smiled awkwardly. Advisor, whose face flushed red. He said angrily, How dare you do such a despicable thing in broad daylight? You're too ridiculous. Whoosh. The window lattice was lifted. A half-undressed beauty slammed half of her body out of the window. She slammed so hard that people thought she was going to fall. Her shoulders were half exposed. Her cheeks were red, and her eyes were misty. Which stinky man said that? Was it you, or? Her pale finger pointed from advisor, who to Gu Jiao. Then she smiled drunkenly. Oh, it's a handsome little general. Come on, general. I'll have a drink with you. Advisor who could not bear to look. He dared to look if he was alone, but it was very awkward when he was with his superior. He quickly covered his eyes and turned his face away. Gu Jiao calmly looked up at the second floor, but she was not looking at the woman. The woman huffed. Am I not beautiful? Who are you looking at? Who said my Sanyang is not beautiful? Accompanied by a teasing and drunken voice, a drunken burly man arrived behind the beauty. One of his arms was propped up on the windowsill, while the other was placed on the beauty's soft and slender waist. His eyes blurred as he looked at the youth downstairs. Naturally, he also saw the Black Wind King beneath the young man. His eyes narrowed slightly as he smiled faintly and said, Oh, which young master of the Han family is this? I have never seen him before. Advisor who raised his eyes and shouted, How dare you? This was the new Commander Xiao of the Black Wind Battalion, the adopted son of Dukan. Oh, he seemed a little surprised. The Black Wind Cavalry has changed hands again. The Han family is really useless. Zhao Dengfeng. Gu Jiao looked at him calmly. Are you willing to return to the Black Wind camp? Zhao Dengfeng chuckled and said, I'm eating and drinking here, living a carefree and happy life. Why would I go back to the Black Wind camp? It's hard and tiring, and we might have to go to war at any time. It's like playing with your life. Gu Jiao was not angry, nor was she disappointed. She just stared at him without blinking. Her eyes were pure and clear, and they were filled with unyielding determination. Zhao Dengfeng's eyes stung. He stopped smiling and said coldly, If you are here to eat, this meal is on me. If you have other ideas, I advise you to leave. Zhao Dengfeng, do not want to have anything to do with the Black Wind camp in this lifetime. With that, he closed the window with a bang. You almost clipped me. A beauty complained from the second floor. Many commoners had gathered to watch. Even the guests upstairs and downstairs looked at Gu Jiao strangely. Advisor who coughed lightly and said, My lord, let's go back first. Gu Jiao nodded. Boss, let's go. The Black Wind King turned around and galloped towards the north gate. Advisor who urged his horse to catch up. My lord, you had a bad start today. Being rejected 3 times in one day was too miserable. It's fine, said Gu Jiao. Advisor who was stunned. The youth's expression was calm. There was no frustration, no disappointment, nor was he trying to be brave. Advisor who suddenly realized that the youth beside him was as calm as still water. He was so young, but his heart was so strong. Advisor who had seen countless people, but there were only few who could reach the youth's level, let alone one who was so young. Advisor who asked, My lord, did you expect the 3 of them to reject you? No, said Gu Jiao. That means you're not an ordinary person who can endure silently. Advisor who wanted to say something, but Gu Jiao suddenly pulled on the reins and stopped the horse. Advisor who had no choice but to stop as well. He asked in confusion, My lord, what happened? Gu Jiao turned to look at the black figure in the tea shed behind her. You go back first. I won't be returning to the camp today. Yes. Although Advisor who was puzzled, this was his first day in contact with the new Commander-in-Chief. He didn't dare to disobey the new Commander-in-Chief's orders. Advisor who urged his horse back to the inner city. Gu Jiao rode the Black Wind King to the tea shed. She asked the Black Wind King to stay outside the tea shed. She found a table and sat down. A bowl of herbal tea and 2 steamed buns, she said to the owner. Yes, sir. The owner of the tea shed filled a large bowl with 2 steaming steamed buns and a bowl of herbal tea for Gu Jiao. This place was close to the relay station and the Amen, so officers often came and went. The owner of the tea shed had never been to the inner city, so he did not recognize the Black Wind Cavalry. He only thought that Gu Jiao was an officer from the Amen. Gu Jiao picked up the teacup and took a sip in silence. She looked like she was drinking tea, but she was actually observing a man wearing a cloak and a hood. From her angle, she could only see the man's cloak and hood. But when she entered the tea shed, she saw the man's face under the hood. He was wearing a golden half-face mask, revealing a white chin. The man had an unusual aura. Gu Jiao almost immediately concluded that he was a man of sacrifice. Gu Jiao also noticed that the man wore a black jade ring on his left thumb. The man drank a bowl of tea, left 5 knife coins, grabbed the long sword on the table, and left the tea shed. Not long after he left, Gu Jiao also paid for the tea and steamed buns. Then she rode the Black Wind King and left. The Black Wind King had a keen sense of smell and had been specially trained. It was as good as a horse when it came to tracking people. However, the man was a master. Gu Jiao did not follow him too closely to avoid being discovered. But not long after entering the northern inner city gate, the man's aura suddenly disappeared. The Black Wind King sniffed hard, but could not find which way the man went. What's going on? Did he disappear into thin air? Or, Gu Jiao muttered. Suddenly, she realized something and pulled out the red tasseled spear on her back. A tall figure descended from the sky and kicked her red tasseled spear. She flipped down from the horse with her spear. The tip of the spear touched the ground. She used the momentum to flip and stabilize herself. Only then did she not fall to the ground in a sorry state. She held the red tasseled spear and looked coldly at the man in the black robe who landed on the opposite side of the street. This fork in the road was very remote. Other than 2 people and a horse, there was no one else. The man's robe fluttered. The hot summer wind suddenly had a hair-raising chill. Black Wind King? The man in the black robe looked at the horse beside Gu Jiao. His thin lips under the mask opened slightly. You are that Xiao Lulang? I am. Gu Jiao looked at him fearlessly. If I knew that you would recognize me, I would have greeted you at the tea shed, Lord and Han. That's right. This man was the #1 master under Imperial Concubine Han. And Han, you actually know me. It seems that the guy from the State Preceptor Hall has revealed a lot of information about me to you. The man in the black robe slowly walked towards Gu Jiao. His steps were very slow, but each step carried a terrifying murderous aura. I didn't come out of the city today for you. But since you sent yourself to me, I have no choice but to take your life. Gu Jiao said, That's not up to you. The man in the black robe smiled faintly. You're young, but you talk big. Gu Jiao said indifferently, Aren't you also ugly? Dream on. You have a sharp tongue. The man in the black robe smiled and suddenly attacked Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao felt a huge amount of internal energy pressing down on her body. Before she could break free from this internal energy, the other party's figure flashed in front of her in the blink of an eye and struck her chest with a palm. Gu Jiao blocked it with her red tasseled spear, but she was still sent flying by the man's palm. The Black Wind King rushed to catch her, but the man in the black robe didn't give Gu Jiao a chance to land safely. He flew over and slapped Gu Jiao into the air. Then he jumped up again and stomped on Gu Jiao's abdomen. If this stomp landed, Gu Jiao's organs would rupture and she would die on the spot. In the nick of time, a gray figure appeared in the air and flashed under his feet. He carried Gu Jiao and knelt on one knee on the side of the street. He didn't continue fighting. He carried Gu Jiao onto the back of the Black Wind King's horse and rode the Black Wind King through the alley towards a crowded area. Gu Jiao spat out blood and spat out half of Liao Chen's sleeve. Liao Chen held her with one hand and held the reins tightly with the other. They ran for 3 whole streets before the Black Wind King stopped. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster and more complete. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/8964/2826/106-239-292. HTML Genius memorized this site's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Biku Go mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 798. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels that can't be found online are all available here. There was no one around, so Liao Chen jumped off the horse. Without Liao Chen's support, Gu Jiao lay weakly on the horse's back. She had vomited all the blood she should have vomited. She was just exhausted. Liao Chen took her pulse. Although he wasn't a doctor, he was very sensitive to the flow of energy as a martial artist. "You're fine." Liao Chen was surprised. This wasn't very accurate. Liao Chen's definition of fine was that there was no need to prepare for a funeral. But Liao Chen was still very surprised. Was this girl so resilient? After taking 2 hits from an Hun, she only spat out some blood. "I'm that strong, humph." Gu Jiao lay on Black Wind King's back and said weakly. Yes, she was strong enough to survive 2 hits from an Hun, but it was hard to believe that this girl would say it. Liao Chen's gaze landed on her armor and battle suit. The fiery red battle suit looked like a cloak he had seen before, but he couldn't remember what the cloak was for. But the texture of the armor. He raised his hand to touch the armor on Gu Jiao's back. "This is," Gu Jiao said. "Hey, didn't anyone tell you not to touch girls?" The king of atmosphere. The emotions that were surging in Liao Chen's eyes stopped abruptly. He looked at Gu Jiao speechlessly. "Oh, you still remember that you're a girl, but you still dare to go against an Hun. Are you crazy? He wanted to go against me. I was just following him." Gu Jiao stated the truth. Although she wanted to kill an Hun, she didn't want to be unprepared. Actually, she and Black Wind King were already very cautious, but an Hun's vigilance was clearly higher than expected. Speaking of which, she was lucky to have this armor. If not for it, she might have died at an Hun's hands. This armor didn't seem to be made of ordinary dark steel. There should be some other material added to it. Not only was it incomparably tough, it could even withstand the attacks of an expert like an Hun. "I'm already vomiting blood, but it's not damaged at all," Gu Jiao said as he touched his armor. Liao Chen glanced at her speechlessly. This girl looked very proud. Did she know that she had crawled back from the palace of the King of Hell? Forget it. If she didn't have this drive, she wouldn't have been able to do so many things. Liao Chen said, "He underestimated you this time. He didn't use his full strength to kill you." So she wasn't the only one who misjudged. To an Hun, not being able to kill her with 2 consecutive moves was already considered a failure. Gu Jiao lay flat on the Black Wind King's back like a little frog. "You can't beat him either, right?" Liao Chen said seriously. "Of course not. This monk's power is boundless. It's more than enough to deal with a death warrior. I saw that you were injured and worried that you would die after the fight, so I hurried to take you away to find a doctor. But it looks like there's no need to find one." Gu Jiao said. "Oh." Liao Chen thought, "What's with that tone?" Gu Jiao said again, "What if you and Taoist Qing Feng work together?" Liao Chen said, "He won't be willing to work with me. He'll only work with an Hun to kill me first." Gu Jiao pondered for a moment. "I've been curious about something for a long time. What did you do to Taoist Qing Feng? Did you steal his wife or dig up his ancestral grave? Why does he want to kill you so badly?" Liao Chen took off his wineskin, pulled out the cork, and took a sip. "Children shouldn't ask about adults' business." "Oh, adults' business." Gu Jiao lay on her stomach. Her cheeks were pressed into a lump of meat, but she still pretended to raise her eyebrows. It was hard to look at her. Liao Chen took another sip. After a long silence, he looked at the moon and said, "It's not that I can't beat In Hun, I just can't kill him." There was only one person in the world who could kill In Hun. That person was Shi Tian. Unfortunately, Shi Tian went missing during a mission. There was no news of him after that. Most likely, he was already dead. Gu Jiao said, "Speaking of which, why did you suddenly appear? You're not just passing by this time, are you? Monk, are you following me? Let me tell you, it's not right to follow a girl. Stalkers like you will be beaten up very badly in our country." Her voice became softer and softer, more and more confused. Liao Chen turned his head and saw that Gu Jiao had fallen asleep from exhaustion. Her vitality was strong and her will was tenacious. But she was not made of iron. She could get hurt, and tired. This girl had not had a day of peace since she came to the Yen Kingdom. The alley fell into silence. Liao Chen looked at the armor on her body and murmured, "Why is this armor on you? Did Duke N give it to you? How did you become his adopted son? Why would he give such an important thing to you?" His gaze fell on her squishy little face. Looking at her drooling appearance, he could not help but ask, "Who are you?" The sky was already dark. The Black Wind King silently found a place to let Gu Jiao sleep in the cool night wind. Liao Chen walked over and touched the Black Wind King's head. He asked, "You don't remember me?" The Black Wind King looked at him with a confused expression. Liao Chen stroked its head and said, "You're right. You haven't seen me. I've seen you. I was there when you were born." The Black Wind King began to smell the scent on Liao Chen. It was not a familiar scent, but it was not unfamiliar either. It did not make it feel disgusted. Liao Chen did not move. He allowed the Black Wind King to search for the scent of the Xianyuan family on him. But it probably would not be found. The Black Wind King smelled for a long time. Its emotions were not as rich as a human's, but after smelling Liao Chen's scent, it felt an inexplicable sense of melancholy and depression. Liao Chen reached out his hand with the string of Buddhist prayer beads and gently placed it on the Black Wind King's forehead. He whispered, "It's okay, it's okay." The Princess Mansion. It had rained the night before. Today, it was sunny after the rain. The air was clear with the smell of earth and grass. Princess Xinyang and Yujin sat in a room and tidied up old clothes. They were all Xiaohang's childhood. The soft bed was covered with children's clothes. Yujin and Princess Xinyang sat on the edge of the bed at each end. Yujin picked up an old cotton cloth that had been washed clean and said in amusement, "This is the young Duke's diaper when he was young. You really know how to collect it. You didn't throw away a single one." Princess Xinyang also could not help but laugh. "Why would I throw it away? The Princess Mansion is so big. There's no lack of places to put things." Yujin smiled. "You just don't want to." Princess Xinyang picked up a red doo-doo and said, "This was from when he was 3 months old. He grows quickly. After half a month, he won't be able to wear it anymore." Yujin recalled. At that time, the weather was still cold. "I remember that he only wore this doo-doo twice." Princess Xinyang said, "It's just beautiful. After bathing, let him wear it to satisfy his mother's desire to see." The young Duke is pitiful. Yujin folded the doo-doo and placed it in a box to the side. She then picked up a set of pink underwear. "The young Duke probably doesn't know, but when he was 1 year old, you dressed him up as a young girl, right?" Princess Xinyang gently coughed. "It was just for the eyes." Yujin put away the cute underwear and picked up a pair of tiger-headed shoes. Smiling, she said, "This pair of shoes was personally made by this servant." Princess Xinyang pointed at the hat and blanket on the bed. "There's also this tiger-headed hat and tiger-headed blanket. They were both made by you. They are Aheng's first birthday gifts." Yujin smiled. Princess even remembers. Princess Xinyang's gaze was gentle. Looking at the small shoes and clothes, her entire being emitted a motherly gentleness. "I remember all of Aheng's matters very clearly," she said. Eugen said, "Speaking of the young duke's first birthday, this servant remembers that at that time, you wanted the young duke to grab a book. The young duke wanted the young duke to grab a sword. As a result, the young duke did not grab a single one." Mentioning this, Princess Xinyang did not know whether to laugh or cry. That's right, he grabbed Long Yi. Princess Xinyang's concept of raising children was completely different from Shang Guanyan's. Shang Guanyan had inherited the Xian Yuan family's tradition of raising children. She allowed children to be raised freely, hating that she could not allow Shang Guanqing to grow up wild. As for Princess Xinyang, because of her terrible childhood experience, she was especially careful after having Xiaoheng. She did not leave Xiaoheng's side for even a moment. She did not allow him to leave her sight for even a moment. The only thing missing was tying Xiaoheng to her belt. Before he was 1 year old, Xiaoheng had never seen such a large scene. Suddenly being surrounded by a group of people, with his parents also being accomplices, he was frightened. Feeling wronged, he called out to Long Yi. Long Yi appeared. His little hand tightly grasped Long Yi's finger. Princess Xinyang suddenly sighed. "Is Long Yi still like that?" Eugen nodded her head with a dignified expression. Since Princess gave that thing to him, he just sat in the corridor in a daze every day. The story began when Princess Xinyang suddenly had the idea to organize her old belongings. When she was organizing her old dowry box, she accidentally found a jade thumb ring that had been sealed for many years. This was the thing that Long Yi had brought with him when he had just arrived at Princess Xinyang's mansion. He had accidentally left it in the room of Princess Xinyang. Princess Xinyang had intended to let Eugen return it, but she was suddenly interrupted by the people preparing for the wedding. At that time, the late emperor had passed away, and the emperor had decreed that she and Xiao Ji would get married during the mourning period. The entire Princess Xinyang's mansion was so busy that her feet did not touch the ground. In addition, Long Yi had never looked for that thing, so she had forgotten about the matter of the jade thumb ring. 20 years had passed, and if she had not found it while sorting out her old things, she might not have remembered this jade thumb ring for the rest of her life. Princess Xinyang sighed. "How could I have completely forgotten about it at that time?" Eugen comforted her. "Mainly at that time, you were not sure whether it was Long Yi's or not. All 5 dragon shadow guards had come to your room, and after they left, a jade thumb ring appeared on the carpet. So who would know whose it was?" The reason why she was sure now was because Princess Xinyang had called all 5 of them. Other 4 people had no reaction to the jade thumb ring, and only Long Yi had always been staring at it. At this moment, Long Yi was sitting cross-legged in the corridor. The weather was so hot, and seeing that he liked to sit there, Princess Xinyang spread out a mat for him. Long Yi sat there for a whole day. When Long Yi had just arrived at Princess Xinyang's mansion, Princess Xinyang was unable to distinguish between him and dragon shadow guards. But now carefully thinking about it, other than her insufficient understanding of dragon shadow guards, there was another important reason. That was, Long Yi was indeed a death soldier. As for why he had randomly entered Princess Xinyang's mansion, it was probably because he didn't remember who he was. So when he saw death soldiers with the same aura as him, he thought that he was also one of them. He saw that their mission was to protect her, so he mistakenly thought that this was also his mission. Perhaps it was time for Long Yi to find his true identity, as well as to complete his true mission. Gu Jiao directly slept for 2 hours, and when she opened her eyes, Liaochen was already gone. Gu Jiao slowly sat up, then rubbing her sore neck, she said to Black Wind King, "It's already so late. I'm sorry. I made you carry me for so long." She turned over and dismounted, then stretched her muscles and bones. Soon after, she led Black Wind King to the side of a nearby well, then borrowed a wooden bucket from a commoner who was fetching water from the well, and washed the bloodstains on her body. When she returned to Duke's mansion, her wet clothes had already dried. No one could see that she had vomited blood or was injured. She entered the mansion as if nothing had happened. Little Jing Kong had come today, and the small noise of him and Gu Yan could be heard in Feng Courtyard. In the corridor, Dukan sat in a wheelchair and played chess with old Chancellor. On the rattan chair beside him, Great Aunt was holding a small jar and eating candied fruit. And in the courtyard, Gu Xiaoshan was learning a new mechanism technique from Master Lu. Master Nin was still obsessed with making poisons, and Gu Qingfeng was dragged to be the referee for little Jingkong and Gu Yan, making the two loudspeakers quarrel with each other. Gu Jiao stood at the entrance of Feng Courtyard, and what she saw was such a scene. Everyone seemed to be doing their own thing, but in fact, they were all waiting for her. Everyone just didn't say anything. Each of them was protecting her in their own way. Gu Jiao's pain and tiredness seemed to disappear in an instant. She held Black Wind King's hand and walked into the courtyard as usual. Han family. Mu Ruxin determined the treatment plan for Heir Han. Old Master Han, Han Lei, and Third Master Han were all in Heir Han's room, waiting for Mu Ruxin's diagnosis. Mu Ruxin said, Heir Han's hamstring has been cut. If he wants to recover, he must be reconnected. But he has missed the best opportunity for surgery. The wound seems to have healed, but the part that should be reconnected is not reconnected. The plan I'm going to use sounds very dangerous, but it's the most practical and effective. What plan? Han Lei asked. Mu Ruxin looked at the handsome Heir Han on the bed, then turned to the three of them and said, cut his hamstring again. I'll operate on him and reconnect it. Third Master Han said in disbelief, are you serious? You want to do it again? Are you sure you want to save him and not kill him? You aren't a spy sent by the Anghua Prefecture to our Han family, are you? Old Master Han looked at Mu Ruxin with a gloomy gaze. Mu Ruxin hurriedly said, Third Master, you misunderstood. How could I be Duke and spy? I don't have anything to do with him. I just said that the reason I came to your manor is to seek a bright future for myself. You give me the status of a Shangguan citizen, and I'll cure Heir Han. We don't owe each other anything. Old Master Han said, this old man has never heard of such a treatment method. Miss Mu, are you sure you can do it? Mu Ruxin said arrogantly, this kind of surgery is just a small illness similar to typhoid in the hands of my master, Divine Dr. Luo. I'm not talented, but I've followed my master to perform a few surgeries on hamstrings. Han Lei thought for a while. Father, I still feel that it's inappropriate. Grandfather. On the bed, Heir Han, who had been silent for a long time, suddenly said, grandson is willing to try. Han Lei frowned. Ye heir, if you mess it up, there'll be no hope for your leg injury. I've been thinking of a way to beg His Majesty these past few days, asking him to issue a decree for Imperial Preceptor Hall to treat you. Han Yi shook his head. Father, you should know that Imperial Preceptor Hall won't treat me. Moreover, the Crown Prince and Imperial Concubine have repeatedly angered His Majesty. His Majesty is too lazy to care about the Han family. Let's do as Divine Dr. Mu said. When can we do the surgery? Mu Ruxin said, we can do it now. Ah, that's right, I suddenly thought of something. Everyone looked at her. She smiled and said, I was living well in the Duke residence when Dukan suddenly used my homesickness as an excuse to end my treatment by his side. Coincidentally, on the same day, I saw Xiao Lulang move into the Duke residence. I don't know if there's any connection between the two. Han Lei said thoughtfully, Xiao Lulang is his adopted son. It's understandable for him to move into the Duke residence. Mu Ruxin smiled faintly. But why did he send me away? That's the most suspicious point, isn't it? Han Lei asked. Xiao Lulang moved into the Duke residence alone. Mu Ruxin sighed. I'm not sure about that. There were 2 carriages behind him. As for what was in the carriages, I didn't see it. Han Lei came over and whispered in old Master Han's ear, Father, could it be that Xiao Liulang's family members have hidden in the Dukan residence? No wonder our people couldn't find them even after searching everywhere. Old Master Han lowered his voice and said faintly, don't worry about that. We'll send someone to inquire about it later. The most important thing now is Yi Heir's injury. As he said that, he crossed his hands and placed them on the handle of his cane as he looked toward Mu Ru Xian. Then I'll ask Miss Moo to operate on this old man's grandson. However, this old man will warn you first. If anything happens to this old man's grandson, Miss Moo will pay with her own life. In the dead of night. After sending off the last trumpet girl, Gu Jiao could finally enjoy her bed. She lay on the soft bed and looked at the pearl-covered canopy. The place where she was injured by an Hun was aching. She massaged her shoulder with one hand and put the other behind her head. You hit me so hard. One day, I'll put you in a sack. In the end, she was too tired. Not long after, she fell into a deep sleep. She hadn't had a foreboding dream for a long time. She used to think wildly that perhaps the things that were foreboding in her dreams had really happened before. After she came to Yen country, everyone's fate had changed. So, she would never have that kind of dream again. But tonight, she dreamed of it again. But it was different from other people's dreams. For the first time, she saw her own ending in her dream. Digression, it's almost the end of the month. If you have a monthly ticket, hurry up and vote. The latest chapter of this book isn't finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found on the internet are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/8964-2_89642_106-2200014. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in a second. www.zhbqg.com Bikugo mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 799. Please scan the QR code below to download the app for more exciting content. The novel will be updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels will be read for free. You can find all the novels that you can't find on the internet. When Gu Jiao woke up, there was still blood in her eyes that had not faded. The bloody mist in the dream seemed to have spread to the room. Even the white pearls on the curtains had turned into blood-red agates. The suffocating and nauseating smell of blood filled her nostrils. Broken corpses were lying on the beams. Drip, drip. Drops of thick blood dripped on her expressionless cheeks. Jiao Jiao. Jiao Jiao. Someone seemed to be calling her. Jiao Jiao. Jiao Jiao. Little Jing Kong climbed onto the bed and shook her shoulders. Jiao Jiao, why are you ignoring me? The blood-dripping corpse was blocked by a tender little face, and everything in the dream came to an abrupt end. Gu Jiao blinked and completely woke up from the nightmare. She looked at little Jing Kong, who was looking at her worriedly with his eyes wide open. She answered calmly with a hoarse voice, Jing Kong. Little Jing Kong took a deep breath. I was just worried about you. Gu Jiao lay flat on the soft bed. She raised her hand and hugged the little guy. I'm fine. Little Jing Kong suddenly got a loving hug and was very shy. Her little hands covered her reddened little face, and her little feet swayed as she had nowhere to put them. Jiao Jiao really likes me the most. Jiao Jiao. Jiao Jiao, you're hugging me a little too tightly. He was almost out of breath. Little fool, why did you come? Why did you come to collect my corpse even though you knew it was a trap? Jiao Jiao, let's go home. I'll take you home. The young man's blood-soaked body tightly protected her in his embrace, just like how she had hugged him when he was young. His eyes were red from killing, and his back and legs were filled with arrows that glittered with cold light. His hot blood stained her path to the yellow springs. He put her on the bamboo raft to return home, but he himself fell down by the river that was engulfed in the flames of war. Great Yan's youngest god of war had fallen. After breakfast, Gu Jiao went to the Black Wind camp as usual. She first went to the various training grounds to take a look. All the generals were seriously training their soldiers, and the Black Wind cavalry were also accepting their mission without complaint. Little Shi did not stop messing around even after defeating more than a dozen horse trainers. It was so energetic that even 10,000 horses despised it. Even the explosive training that horses were most afraid of was quickly addicted to it. The well-behaved horses were thrown into chaos by it, and the training ground became a scene of a large-scale car accident. In the end, it was the Black Wind King who suppressed Little She with force. Only then did Little She obediently go back to training. However, it seemed to be obedient. When it brushed past a Black Wind cavalry, it raised its hooves and kicked the horses, but the horse was speechless. How could it be so despicable? The price for its despicable behavior was that Little She was taught a lesson by the Black Wind King. In the end, it could only limp to the training ground. It was very miserable. "Milord, milord." Teacher, who ran over energetically. He had learned his lesson today, and he had a feather fan in his hand. He fanned Gu Jiao with a smile and said, "Why are you here so early? The sun just rose not long ago." "I'm here to take a look," Gu Jiao said. Teacher, who smiled and said, "When you issued the transfer order yesterday, it was like a thunderbolt that corrected the Black Wind Camp's bad habits. The generals that you promoted are all in awe of you. So how could they not train their soldiers seriously? You don't have to worry about it." Some of the generals that she promoted were old subordinates of the Shenyuan family, and some were new blood that joined later. They trained their soldiers seriously not because they respected her, but because the Black Wind Camp's military discipline and traditions were like that. They were strict with themselves, and they were strict with their subordinates. Now that she had a title, it wasn't that they really respected her, but that it was their duty to obey her orders. Teacher, who saw that Gu Jiao's expression didn't change at all, so he couldn't help but wonder if he didn't flatter her in the right place. He said with a smile, "It's so hot today. Milord, you should go rest in the tent." Gu Jiao put her hands behind her back and said, "I'm going to find Wan Renchong." After saying that, she turned around and went to the reserve camp. Teacher, who couldn't stop her even if he wanted to. "Ah, milord, milord. Oh, I need you to do something for me," Gu Jiao said before going to Wan Renchong. The weapons and armors that were piled up like a mountain in the courtyard when she left yesterday were nowhere to be seen today. It seemed that Wan Renchong had repaired them overnight. He was a very efficient person. Wan Renchong was sitting in the room, repairing the armors that were delivered that morning. Gu Jiao walked over. Wan Renchong looked up at her. Gu Jiao glanced at the shadow on the ground and said, "I didn't block the light." Wan Renchong continued to repair the armors. "Do you need help?" Gu Jiao asked. "I used to be a doctor, and suturing is my specialty." Wan Renchong frowned. It seemed that he was a little impatient with this young man, but he didn't know how to drive him away. He had no choice but to say indifferently, "No need." Gu Jiao sat down on the threshold, resting her elbows on her knees and supporting her head with one hand. She looked at him and said, "I went to see Li Shan and Zhao Dengfeng yesterday. What do you want to do?" Wan Renchong frowned. "I want to win over the old subordinates of the Shenyuan family," Gu Jiao said, without hiding anything. The Black Wind Camp that had been ruled by the Han family for more than 10 years was not weak, but the Han family had dismissed too many excellent soldiers. Many of the old subordinates of the Shenyuan family had left one after another. Wan Renchong, Li Shun, Zhao Dengfeng, and Shi Zhongkui, who had died in the battle, were the 4 fierce generals of the Black Wind Camp. Some people called them the 4 kings in private. Now, only Wan Renchong was left, and he had become a blacksmith. If Gu Jiao wanted to restore the morale of the Black Wind Camp, she had to gather the old subordinates of the Shenyuan family. There is no Shenyuan family anymore. Wan Renchong said calmly. Gu Jiao said, "I ask you every day, do you want to go back to the vanguard camp? If you don't, I will come back tomorrow." Wan Renchong said indifferently, "How many times do I have to tell you before you understand? Even if you ask me for 1 year, 2 years, or 5 years, I won't agree." Gu Jiao raised her eyebrows. "You mean you will stay in the Black Wind Camp for 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, and never leave?" Wan Renchong stood up and went to boil the boiler. "You should go," Gu Jiao stood up and dusted her clothes. See you tomorrow. Wen Rinchong pulled the bellows and did not look back. Gu Jiao went around the camp again before returning to her tent. Teacher, who also came back. Is it done? Gu Jiao asked. It's done. Teacher, who had been in the camp for so many years. But this was the first time he was entrusted with an important task. He really showed his sincerity and efficiency. Gu Jiao weighed the money bag that Teacher, who handed to her. She did not count it and just put it on her waist. Teacher, who was overjoyed. Darren trusted him. He, Hu Yang, finally had a chance to stand out. Darren, how was your talk with Wen Rinchong? Did he agree to go back to the Vanguard camp? He asked with concern. Not yet, Gu Jiao said. Teacher, whose face darkened. Why is he so uncooperative? Gu Jiao stood up and walked out. Teacher, who was surprised. Darren, you just came back. Where are you going? Gu Jiao said, I'm going to find Li Shun and Zhao Dangfeng. Teacher, who thought of the experience of almost vomiting yesterday. He swallowed and asked, Then should I go with you? Gu Jiao said lightly, Come if you want. I don't want to come. But if you say so, how can I not come? Today, she went to see Zhao Dangfeng first. She had deliberately mentioned the two of them in front of Wen Rinchong to see his reaction. Wen Rinchong's reaction was very calm. Either he had never heard the rumor that Zhao Dangfeng had colluded with the Han family, or he knew that the rumor was false. From Gu Jiao's observation of Wen Rinchong, the former was unlikely. Oh, isn't this the officer from yesterday? Why did you come to my Crane restaurant again? In a room on the second floor, Zhao Dangfeng was holding a beauty in his arms. He leaned against the window and looked at the young man on the horse. Are you here to persuade me to go back to the army? Who wants to go back and live a life of bloodshed? How about this, little general? You come to my Crane restaurant and be the second boss. Teacher, who was angry. He pointed at him with his feather fan and scolded. Zhao, how can you talk like that? Little general? This is the new commander of the Black Wind Battalion, Darren Xiao. I already told you about it yesterday. Gu Jiao said, Boss? That's a good idea. Zhao Dangfeng looked at the young man who was led by the nose. Isn't that right? As long as you have enough money, I can give you half of the Crane restaurant. Gu Jiao looked up at him. I don't need you to give me a share. I'll buy your Crane restaurant. Zhao Dangfeng was stunned. Then he laughed. Do you know what you're saying? My Crane restaurant is the best restaurant in town. Does your family have a mine? Little general, before he could finish his words, the young man on the horse casually tossed him a token. He caught it with a backhand, and when he took a closer look, he was stunned. Gu Jiao asked seriously, Is this enough? If not, I'll send someone to get more. Dukan asked Steward Zheng to give it to her before she left this morning. She had never used it before and did not know how much money it could give. Zhao Dangfeng choked. He asked in disbelief, Mingyi Bank's master token, you, who are you to Mingyi Bank? Gu Jiao thought for a while and said, young master? My family doesn't have a mine, but my family has a bank. Gu Jiao said to Hu Yang, Teacher, Hu, stay here and take care of the paperwork. I'll go find Li Shun. Advisor who was still immersed in the huge shock brought about by this wave of operation. Was this the rumored inhumane tycoon? He said, this, Zhao Dangfeng said coldly, I won't sell it. Gu Jiao said, You said yourself that you wanted me to be the owner. You can't go back on your word. Zhao Dangfeng clenched his fists and sneered. So what if I go back on my word? Gu Jiao said seriously, I'll beat you up. Zhao Dangfeng was speechless. Li Shun was not at the docks today. Gu Jiao asked the nearby foreman and found out that he had probably gone to buy medicine for his mother. Where does he live? Gu Jiao asked. He lives over there. Sir, if you keep walking straight and turn east of the fork, you'll see his house. The people in that alley have all moved away. Only the mother and son still live there. It'll be easy to find. Thank you. Gu Jiao followed the path the foreman pointed out and successfully found a small, shabby courtyard. The courtyard door was ajar. Gu Jiao knocked on the door. Excuse me, is anyone home? No one answered. Gu Jiao thought for a moment, then pushed the door open and walked in. The things in the courtyard were very old, but not messy. Water tanks, hose, chicken coop, they were placed neatly. The clothes on the clothes line were also neatly dried. They had been washed until they were yellow. Patches were made one after another, but they were very clean. Niu Wazi, you're back. An old voice came from inside the room. Niu Wazi? Li Shun's pet name? Gu Jiao walked into the central room and walked to the room on the right. Niu Wazi. A blind old woman was sitting on the ground. It looked like she had fallen and could no longer stand up. She tried to use her hands to support herself on a chair, but it was useless. Gu Jiao hurriedly walked forward and helped her sit down on a chair. You're not Niu Wazi, the old woman said. Although she couldn't see, she could still smell her son's scent. I'm here to find Li Shun. Gu Jiao saw the old woman's vigilant look and added, I'm his friend. The old woman touched Gu Jiao's armor, and the vigilance in her turbid eyes disappeared. She smiled and said, Niu Wazi's friend. He went out to get medicine for me. He'll be back soon. Sit for a while, I'll pour you some tea. Niu Wazi was really Li Shun's pet name. Gu Jiao said to Mother Li, You sit, I'll do it myself. Mother Li smiled kindly. Okay, don't be polite. The tea is on the table in the central room. Gu Jiao went to pour the tea. In their house, even the teacups were cracked. There were only 2 stools. Other than that, there was no other furniture in the central room. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that this house was bare. Gu Jiao went to the kitchen. The cupboard was empty. There were no leftovers. There were a few dried corn cobs and half a rotten pumpkin on the ground. There was only half a bucket of old rice in the rice jar, and there were worms all over it. Gu Jiao took the water to Mother Li's room. Have some tea. You came to my house, and I even asked you to pour me tea. It's all my fault for being blind and useless. It's nothing. It's just a little money. It's only enough for 3 sets of medicine. At the pharmacy, the shop assistant impatiently said to Li Shun. 3 sets it is. Li Shun emptied his pockets and grabbed 3 sets of medicine to go home. When he entered, he clearly sensed that someone had been in the courtyard. A trace of vigilance flashed through his eagle-like eyes. He flew into the room. Mother. His mother was sleeping peacefully on the bed, but she was startled by his voice. Niu Wazi, what's wrong? Mother Li turned her head in the direction of the voice. Seeing that his mother was fine, Li Shun's expression relaxed. He carried the medicine bag to the bedside. Mother, did someone come to our house? Mrs. Li smiled and said, That's right. Your friends from the military camp came by. At first, I thought it was those debt collectors again. In order to cure Mother Li's eyes, Li Shun had borrowed money from loan sharks. From time to time, debt collectors would come knocking. He also left something for you. Mother Li took out a bundle from under the quilt on the inside of the bed and handed it to Li Shun. It's silver, right? She asked in a small voice. Li Shun took it in his hand and felt that it was silver. He opened the bundle. Other than a pile of shining silver ingots, there was also a letter from the Black Wind Battalion. The letter explained the origin of the silver. It was his retirement pay. When the Han family was in power, someone pocketed 90% of his retirement pay. This was the retirement pay he deserved, as well as the interest that should have been paid to him over the years. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster and more complete. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels that can't be found online are all here. https://www.zhpqg.com/8964-2_89642_1062000767. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhpqg.com Bikuga mobile reading website. zhpqg.com Chapter 800. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel was also updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels were read for free. There are all kinds of novels that can't be found online here. Over at the State Preceptor Hall, Shangguan gradually woke up. From waking up once a day for a quarter of an hour, she could now wake up for more than 2 hours a day. The monarch had visited her twice. Wang Xianfei and the others were so scared that they couldn't sleep at night. They were afraid that Shangguan would take things too hard and die together with them. After discussing with her family, Consort Dongshun was the first to think of a solution, and this news was quickly found out by Consort Wang Xian's spies. Wang Xianfei followed suit. Almost at the same time, Yang Defei, who had been watching Wang Xianfei, also knew what she was planning. She also felt that this method was feasible. At first, Chen Shufei and Feng Zhao did not know what the three of them were busy with, but after paying attention to the movements of the three great families, they could more or less guess what was going on. At first, the five of them didn't admit it on the surface, but the more they investigated, the bigger the commotion became. They couldn't hide it any longer, so they might as well confess to each other. Therefore, at the end of July, the 5 imperial concubines once again gathered in the Imperial Preceptor Palace. The eunuchs had been dismissed. Shangguan sat on the chair and resisted the urge to hold half of the watermelon and eat it spoonful by spoonful. She looked at the 5 people sitting opposite her with a cold and world-weary expression. "What are you doing here?" As the most senior imperial concubine, Wang Xian was still the one to speak out. She said, "Shangguan, this queen knows that you don't want to die. What you said last time was just to threaten us." Look at these beautiful words. If Shangguan hadn't been prepared, she would have been deceived by her and exposed her secret. Shangguan slowly said, "Since you think I'm pretending, then why are you still looking for me? You don't have to worry about whether or not I have something on you." Consort Dong snorted and said, "Shangguan, we watched you grow up and sympathized with you, so we are doing you a favor." Shangguan faintly smiled. "Oh, one of you is playing the good cop and the other is playing the bad cop. You're setting up a stage here. Turn right when you get out of the door. Take care." Their faces and necks turned red from choking. Wasn't the previous Shangguan a brute who only knew how to fight? When did she become so eloquent? Wang Xianfei said, "Well, since we are here, we sincerely want you to trade with us." Since their words were useless in front of Shangguan, they might as well speak frankly. Wang Xianfei then said, "Shangguan, you can disregard your own life and death, but can you also disregard the reputation of the Xianyuan family? Let's not beat around the bush about what happened to the Xianyuan family back then. It's true that the crimes of the Xianyuan family were imposed by the other aristocratic families. Do you want the Xianyuan family to be remembered for generations to come, or do you want the Xianyuan family to go down in history and infamy? Make your choice." Shangguan didn't have the slightest emotional fluctuation because of these words. "Wang Xianfei, now you are the one begging me, not the other way around. You'd better put your attitude right." Wang Xianfei clenched her handkerchief so tightly that she almost poked a few holes in it. She asked faintly, "It seems that you don't want the evidence." Shangguan casually said, "It's just the evidence of a few aristocratic families. It doesn't mean anything." The 5 people secretly exchanged a look. What's the matter with Shangguan? How can she guess that they only want to hand over the evidence of the other aristocratic families? They just want to protect their own families, and then pray that Shangguan can be deceived and give them the evidence. Shangguan put down the teacup in her hand on the table and said, "Since you want to rehabilitate the Xianyuan family, then take out all the evidence. There are more than 30 crimes of the Xianyuan family, not one less. Don't challenge my patience, and don't think that you can bargain with me. Maybe tomorrow I will want more than this." "You." Chen Shufei stomped her feet in anger. Such a result was not entirely unexpected. At that time, the worst-case scenario was that Shangguan would ask them to gather all the evidence. Wang Xianfei suppressed her anger and said sternly, "We can give you the evidence of our crimes, but you must also give us the written evidence of our crimes." "That kind of thing is useless. I can give it to you at any time." 3 hours later, Xiao Hong and the old chancellor checked all the accounts, letters, and other evidence, and determined that it was true. The two sides finished the transaction. Wang Xianfei angrily left. The evidence involved a wide range of people. If Shangguan Yan didn't see it with her own eyes, she would have found it hard to believe. Even General Wei Wu is involved. The enemy can never hurt you. The real chilling thing is the betrayal of your friends and family. Shangguan Yan murmured. General Wei Wu is uncle's subordinate. He also taught Xianyuan Chung martial arts. Who would have thought that he would burn the Xianyuan family's granary for his own selfishness? Xiao Hong comforted her. It's all in the past. Such a thing will never happen again. Shangguan Yan restrained the melancholy in her heart and said to her son, "This evidence should be enough to rehabilitate the Xianyuan family." Xiao Hong paused. "Not yet. There is no evidence for the crime of rebellion. Because the crime of rebellion is real. Unless the emperor is willing to admit that he schemed against the Xianyuan family and forced the Xianyuan family to rebel. But that was simply impossible." Xiao Hong said, "How about this? Mother will take this evidence as your loyalty and filial piety to the emperor in exchange for the position of the crown princess. The rest is not urgent. When mother becomes the crown princess, we will find a way to take away the emperor's real power. We can still rehabilitate the Xianyuan family." Shangguan Yan nodded in agreement. "I think it's good. When dawn comes, I will take this evidence to the emperor." The imperial palace. Just as the monarch was about to rest, Zhang Dequan quickly walked over. He glanced at the young princess who was sleeping soundly on the small bed and reported in a low voice, "Your Majesty, Madame Han of the Cold Palace is clamoring to see you." The emperor coldly said, "How many times does she want to see me?" Zhang Dequan didn't dare to answer and only reported, "Han said that she has a secret of the empress." This was the original words of the little palace maid. Zhang Dequan didn't exaggerate a word. When he heard that it was related to the empress, the emperor patiently went to the Cold Palace. Concubine 1 has now been demoted to Wang Guerin and lived on the west side of the Cold Palace, while Han was imprisoned on the east side. The emperor went directly to Han's side. Although she was banished to the Cold Palace, Han still dressed herself up very decently to see the emperor. But so what? The emperor didn't even look at her. She sat on the shabby stone bench and said to the emperor with a smile, "Your Majesty, this concubine has brewed tea. I don't know if your Majesty is used to the Cold Palace's tea?" The emperor frowned and said, "What do you want?" Han gently said, "Your Majesty, you came here just for the secret related to the empress? Your Majesty didn't ask how this concubine has been living these days in the Cold Palace? Your Majesty is really cruel. Only when a man loves a woman will he take pity on her weakness. And when a person has no feelings for her, she can only moan without illness." The emperor's eyes became more and more impatient. Han did not seem to notice and said to herself, "That's right, your Majesty only has Xianyuan Han Yan in your heart. When has there been any other sisters in your harem?" But even for the person he loved, His Majesty could still be ruthless. "Your Majesty's heart only has yourself." The emperor impatiently said, "If you have nothing to say, we will leave." Han poured herself a cup of tea. Before the empress died, she did tell this concubine her true feelings. She said that she regretted marrying your Majesty. If possible, she begged me to think of a way to not bury her in the imperial mausoleum with your Majesty. She did not want to meet your Majesty on the road to the Yellow Springs. The emperor's heart fiercely trembled. He knew that Xianyuan Han Yan hated him, but he didn't expect her to hate him to this extent. Han sneered, "Does your Majesty's heart hurt? Or is it that your Majesty does not want to believe what this concubine said?" "That's right. When has your Majesty ever believed this concubine?" Even this time, this concubine was clearly framed, but your majesty still chose to be blind. Until tonight, this concubine was waiting for your majesty to come and see this concubine. This concubine did not want to go to this step. Your majesty, you forced this concubine. This concubine came to the palace with admiration for your majesty. All these years, this concubine hoped day and night to become a real couple with your majesty. What did Xianyuan Hanyan do? Your majesty's harem was all taken care of by this concubine. This concubine thought that she had some weight in your majesty's heart, but in the end, I found out that your majesty was just unwilling to tire Xianyuan Hanyan. But that woman never looked back at your majesty. This concubine hated her. So, this concubine had people kidnap Shangguanyan. She was sold to the slave broker and became a slave. The emperor's heart fiercely trembled. "It's you." Han Shi smiled and said, "It's this concubine." The monarch was furious. He strode forward and grabbed her neck. "I'm going to kill you." Han Shi was choked until she couldn't breathe. Her face turned purple, but she smiled ferociously. "It's too late. Your Majesty, it's too late. You can't kill this concubine." As soon as her voice fell, a dark shadow fell from the sky and chopped the back of the emperor's neck with a hand knife. The emperor's body suddenly became numb. He let go of Han Shi's hand and fell to the ground in a daze. He saw the hem of a black cloak and a pair of black shoes inlaid with gold. Then his eyelids drooped and he completely fainted. Digression. The chapter of Yen Country came to an end. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found on the internet are all available here. https://www.zhpqg.com/89642_8964286/1061999372. HTML Genius remembered this site's address in a second. www.zhpqg.com Bikuga mobile reading website. zhpqg.com that you're tuning in to the Echo Reads YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.